My name is Shabri Vickers. I'm the chair of the Human Rights Commission. I'd like to welcome you all to our November Human Rights Commission meeting. We have a few items of business that we're going to get to, but I'm going to start out with something here to get started. We are holding our meeting today here in the Portland building due to the overwhelming amount of attendees we've expected, that we have, and based upon the response we have heard from community members related to an HRC decision made on October 7th of this year. Today's meeting has emboldened many in our community around an issue to come and speak, to have their voices heard. Let me first say to those in the audience who are here to share their perspective, thank you for taking the time to engage in our public process and to share your feelings and perspectives as it relates to the HRC, its mission, and the recent decision made. Because we have been made aware of threats of bodily harm against others, I must implore all of those who are here today to please respect everyone who has chosen to show up so that this meeting can move forward, and those who have showed up are able to have their voices heard. It is the expectation of the Commission that all of those in attendance will be respectful and that no one, from any point of view, will disrupt any presentation. Lastly, I'd like to clarify as we move forward. As an all-volunteer advisory body to the City of Portland, elected leaders, the HRC is not charged with making decisions nor declarations on city policy, but rather with advising elected leaders on human rights issues as they relate to the City of Portland. One avenue through which the HRC's advisory statements and endorsements are informed is by receiving community input in a variety of forums, including regularly scheduled public comment at HRC's monthly meetings. As a commission, guided by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the HRC based its decision to endorse this letter solely on the 4 American companies' involvement in human rights violations. This was not an issue related to religion, politics, or nationality, but solely on human rights impacts and a request to the City of Portland to divest from companies profiting from violent conflict. HRC's endorsement of this letter was specifically for the request to be presented to the Socially Responsible Investments Committee, where that city body would use their public process to determine whether the request fits within their guidelines for recommendation to council. The process that led to the HRC's endorsement of the letter began with public testimony at HRC's September 2nd, 2015 meeting. After hearing from community members, the HRC requested additional information and additional time for review, and communicated to attendees that the Commission would hold a vote at the October 7th, 2015 meeting. This process allowed the Human Rights Commission a full month between the time the request was introduced to the time in which the vote took place. Regardless of any post-meeting renouncements, the unanimous vote stands unless another full commission vote takes place. Our job as volunteer community members and human rights commissioners is to hear and take action on human rights issues. This work is difficult and uncomfortable and often involves pushback. We recognize that many issues we are asked to consider are complex and multifaceted. And as a commission, we work to hold true to our mission of upholding the ideals expressed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the ideal that those rights are endowed to all human beings, regardless of their politics. Our decisions may be unpopular to some, or even to the majority, but human rights issues wouldn't exist if these positions were popular. While our decisions are not popular, we are not here as a divisive body, nor has our intention ever been to divide the community here in Portland. However, we have heard that our decision on October 7th had an impact on portions of our community, and both a deep hurt and a lack of understanding on the HRC's choice to make this decision have been shared. At the same time, we have received hundreds of letters for support for that same action. Today, we will not be able to settle the enormity of the issue. However, we are able, as a commission, to continue to listen to public comment and the invited testimony today in the hopes of continuing to be informed as we make decisions. I share that, and we will get started with our standard pieces of business so that we can move forward with our meeting, and then we will move to our agenda. I asked the commission to look over the minutes right now from October, and I asked for a motion to accept them. Audrey moves to accept the October meeting minutes.
Ashley seconds.
Ashley Horn seconds. Do you have any discussion on the meeting minutes? Any other questions or changes? Can I have a vote for all who accept, we'd like to accept the meeting minutes for October 2015 meeting? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting minutes are accepted. I'd ask the commission to look at the 2015 November meeting agenda as it's been proposed so far. And first, as we look at this, I'm going to state that we have over 45 members signed up for public comment, which is certainly outside of our initial allotted time here. I'm going to move that we extend that based upon the amount of people we have signed up and a 2-minute per public comment time period. We can extend from what would end at about 5:20 to about 6:30, simply for public comment. I will state that item number 6 on our agenda is something that we need to take care of today. And so I'm going to use that as a space and a place to help us get finished with business today. Does anyone have any questions about that, or any other, would they like to do anything else? Any other changes to the agenda? If at 6:30 we realize that our 45, the folks who've signed up, that we haven't been able to get to the 45, we can make another motion to extend it at that time as well. Again, as I mentioned, our intention of today's meeting is to listen to community members. And so if at 6:30 we need to extend it, we will do so. I also motion that we're going to, at that point, then remove items 7, 8, and 9 from the agenda, unless we have some capacity to take those on as well. I don't assume that we will. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda with these intended changes?
So moved.
Second.
Ashley moves, Diallo seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Agenda is accepted. We're going to move straight into item number 3, the director's report. Dante James.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dante James. I'm the director of the city's Office of Equity and Human Rights. I sit here usually to offer a director's report to the commission. The commission sits within the confines of my office as a fully independent body designed and tasked with addressing human rights issues and offering recommendations and advice, as Shabri said, to elected officials in the city of Portland. A recent newspaper article described this commission as an obscure city commission. I think you can see by sitting around you that it's not as obscure as you may think. And I certainly welcome you all this evening to this meeting. I also encourage you to become aware of the work of the Human Rights Commission, because it does engage in human rights work. And as Shabri said, conversations about human rights are never comfortable. They're never easy. They're often divisive. And I can attest to that by the almost 300 emails that I've received in the last 4 or 5 days from probably a good majority of you and others in this city of Portland. Many in support of what the Human Rights Commission has done, and many in opposition to what the Human Rights Commission has done. And I didn't tally them up. I did read them. I didn't tally them up and bring you the numbers, because conversations and decisions about human rights are not a popularity contest. And I would encourage you to keep that in mind as we have these conversations today, as well as how we're going to be respectful in this conversation. It is passionate. I've been black man a long time, and so I know these conversations are passionate and personal to many of you in this room, or all of you in this room, or you wouldn't be here. So I appreciate that, and I absolutely respect that. That said, usually one half of the room is going to be unhappy with the end result, whichever the result may be at the end of the day. But again, it's not a popularity contest, or in some places I might still be sitting on the back of the bus. And so I would encourage you to hear all of the conversation. And I can assure you that the Human Rights Commission has a process. It followed its process. And that process may end with City Council voting on this. It may not, because this may never get there. But it has a process and it followed it. And descriptions in the press otherwise, they have done their process. And I, as a director, am charged with ensuring that they do follow a process and do have outcomes and do the work that they're tasked with doing. And I think they could probably all tell you I've challenged them over time to do some of that. And the interesting and ironic thing is, this time when they've actually done something is when they're getting the most drama and difficult aspects. So, again, I thank you and appreciate your participation in this meeting today, and encourage you to speak your truth, because your truth will be heard no matter what the end result is. And I think that is as important sometimes as what the end result actually is. The truth will be heard. So thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing from all the people who will be testifying today.
I'd like to say a few words before we get started. This isn't on the agenda. My name is Sam Sachs. I'm the Human Rights Commissioner for the City of Portland.
Sam.
I've been a Human Rights Commissioner for 2.5 years now. And I was at the vote. I was part of the process that voted.
Sam, we have an agenda item. I would ask that you let us get through this agenda item, because there is specific time for commissioner discussion as it relates to this item.
I appreciate that, but I would like an opportunity to give a different opinion on this issue.
That's exactly what that agenda
So I'll have an
item is
opportunity
for.
to do that
At that time, yes.
before comment.
So we are going to go through our agenda, and as our agenda states, we have invited testimony first. Right after invited testimony, we do have time for commissioner discussion, at which time I will go ahead and ask for your comments first.
I appreciate that. I'd like to give my comments before we get started.
Okay, so,
I think it's all
sorry.
just
I would
so
like
we
to
don't
say that
Sam,
sway the audience and let
Sam,
them come to us with.
we do have a process set in place. We've all just actually accepted the agenda
I
unanimously.
appreciate that.
And that agenda specifically requests that we adhere to it to ensure that we can get through
I understand
with
that.
this.
And
Because you voted
were
to
able
accept that
give-
agenda, Sam, I would ask that you respect your vote to uphold to the agenda that we have, which I will make specific space for you. We're going to move forward with agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 involves 2 specific items. As I just mentioned, invited testimony as well as commissioner discussion. We have invited testimony on this agenda item, which is very different from anything we've ever done before. This essentially is time certain on the agenda, which is one of the reasons why you just saw me stand for what our agenda said and what we just voted in unanimously. This invited testimony, specifically, I will be inviting up Bob Hornstein, Rabbi Fisher, Reverend Ann Emery, Craig Burney, Rabbi Joshua Rose, and Sherry Fishman. And we're going to, I'm sorry.
And one other, Noah Cohen.
and Noah Cohen. I'm going to ask that you guys use this particular mic right in front of you as we reserve these spaces here for you guys to ensure that you have the capacity to come to us in this different space. Bob, if you'd like to start off. We have, I think it should be on. I think when you start speaking into it, it should engage.
Hello?
No. There we go. And we've set about 15 minutes in this particular agenda item to hear from Bob and his guests. The remaining 10 minutes is in fact for commissioner discussion. If we need to extend that a bit of time, we can look at that. But again, we have 45 members of the community who've signed up for public comment. And because we just accepted this agenda, I'd like to move forward with that. Bob, I welcome your invited testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss. Is this really on?
It's on.
Yes.
I think you just need to get maybe close to it.
Well, I'm really.
No, it's not.
Okay, good.
That's okay.
Jump, I can't use this, you want to get to
Okay, good. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your statement, Mr. James. So, as you heard, I'm Bob Hornstein. I'm the Director of Community Relations for the Jewish Federation of Greater Portland. We are the central philanthropic and public affairs body of the local Jewish community. Our public affairs arm, the Jewish Community Relations Council, is made up of a cross-section of the Jewish community with representation from every congregation, from humanist to Orthodox. We therefore represent the broader Jewish community on a range of social justice and human rights issues, and we work on these matters with the other faith and ethnic communities. I think you'll find our reputation is pretty solid. So first of all, thank you for, no, that's too loud. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you and give voice to a perspective that was conspicuously missing on the matter of your support for a proposal to divest from or boycott several U.S. companies due to their operations in Israel. And this afternoon, we are urging you to rescind your endorsement of a letter to the city brought forward by the local Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions, BDS Coalition, or euphemistically known as Occupation Free Portland. This is an action that is opposed by Mayor Hales, State Treasurer Ted Wheeler, Oregon House Majority Leader Jennifer Williamson, Portland Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici, Portland State University President Vim Vival, and many, many others. So I'm going to paint a picture here, and it's not a pretty picture. But I want to talk about this movement, the BDS movement, which cleverly conveys a message in human rights language. But their true goals, as demonstrated by their own leaders, are to delegitimize the state of Israel, vilify its supporters, and deny to the Jewish people the right to national self-determination, a right that is accorded to all other peoples of the world. Their hatred, and I hate to use that word, their hatred for Israel, in fact, knows no bounds. So much so that they demonize the one country in the Middle East that is a vibrant democracy, to which the internationally respected human rights watchdog, Freedom House, gives its highest marks for political and civil rights. A society in which its Arab citizens enjoy freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, the right to hold public office. How can it be that a movement ostensibly committed to human rights, gay rights, women's rights, malign the one country in that region that has all of these things codified into law, while supporting tyrannical governments that have none of them? One of the founders of the BDS movement, a Palestinian activist named Omar Barghouti, whom some of the groups in this room, the BDS Coalition, brought to Portland State University in February, goes from campus to campus in the United States, demonizing Israel and calling for a boycott of Israeli academic institutions and Israeli Jewish scholars. How ironic that Barghouti himself received a master's degree from one of those Israeli academic institutions, namely Tel Aviv University. The call to boycott Israeli universities as a reaction to alleged Israeli policies toward the Palestinians represents a stunning betrayal of the democratic principle of academic freedom. But then again, If BDS supporters were genuinely interested in promoting human rights for all, why blacklist Israeli universities, the very progressive places where ideas for peace and tolerance are forged and taught? Now this body, this commission, of course, is rightly concerned with combating bigotry and racism and homophobia and Islamophobia, and presumably also anti-Semitism. And let me make something really clear. No one here is suggesting that legitimate criticism of Israeli policies is anti-Semitic, but that's not what we're talking about. A recent study by the Louis D. Brandeis Center in Trinity College found that 54% of Jewish students surveyed across 55 universities reported that they had, quote, suffered or witnessed incidents of anti-Semitism, unquote, on their campus. Much of the problem, the study confirms, stems from the hate-filled activism of the radical group Students for Justice in Palestine and their allies, Jewish Voices for Peace, the local chapter of which is the main backer of the boycott proposal to the city. Case in point, right here at Portland State University, and we have some of the students here. Some of our Jewish students have felt deeply unsettled by BDS activism on campus by the very groups with whom you have now, in effect, aligned yourselves. But don't take my word for it. Listen to the words of Bassam Eid, a well-known Palestinian human rights activist. In a recent interview with Ynet News, Eid said, quote, "There are many anti-Semitic elements that have hopped onto the BDS bandwagon. I wonder why those same people remain silent when thousands of Palestinians are slaughtered in the Yarmouk refugee camp in Syria. This is also the reason why the thing that bothers me the most is the fact that there are Jews among the BDS movement's leadership," unquote. He goes on to say that the BDS movement, quote, "only ends up harming the Palestinians themselves," unquote, because it is opposed to any sort of collaboration between Israelis and Palestinians that could benefit both people. And finally, just a brief word about divestment, which is grievously ill-fitted for a peaceful two-state solution to this very complex conflict. Divestment polarizes people and communities so that the debate over divestment drowns out the much-needed conversation about how to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is a one-sided, punitive action that singles out Israel. I don't know if any of you have been to Israel, but do you honestly believe that only one side of this conflict, the Palestinians, have suffered? Does not the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which you note in your press release defending your decision, speak to the right of Israelis to live in peace and security, free from murderous stabbings, free from suicide bombers blowing up cafes and buses, free from the 12,000 missiles fired by the terrorist group Hamas into the southern part of the country, targeting innocent civilians? The hijacking of your human rights agenda by the BDS movement to further their divisive political goals not only harms Israelis and Palestinians, it alienates the vast majority of Portland's Jewish community, and quite frankly makes a mockery of the concept of human rights. Please do the courageous and the right thing and rescind your endorsement of this hurtful proposal. Thank you.
Everyone in the audience, I would ask that as we continue this, because we have such a finite time, to please go ahead and let's let the rest of our invited testimony come up to just ensure that we're able to hear that within the time allotted. And I would ask if it is possible that we continue to look at the issues as it relates to the four companies in particular, the American companies, as we aren't able to make any or take any action as it relates to international companies, which is not a part of our decision. But I welcome your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can you mind stating your name?
My name is Rabbi Tzvi Fisher. I'm with Portland Colo. I will get to the companies in a short moment, but I want to point out that the action was taken by the Human Rights Commission in a month that has been particularly very painful and difficult for the Israeli people.
And the Palestinians too.
I'd
ask that everyone respect our invited testimony, please.
He's lying.
As you may know, over the last month and a half, there have been over 60 stabbings of people walking the streets in Israel. In fact, yesterday, an 80-year-old woman was stabbed in the back as she was walking on the sidewalk. A 71-year-old woman, a 13-year-old boy was in critical condition for over a month on life support because he was stabbed riding his bike from a candy store. These are going on for over a month now. There have been cars used to ram into bus stations, and people, just yesterday, a driver ran into a pedestrian as a terrorist attack. And there have been fire bombs thrown at cars and vehicles. Children have been burnt on most of their body. And during this month of
Please respect the person.
during this month of
Some of them were stabbed by Israelis.
Get rid of them. Yeah,
During-
they should be asked to.
So I'm
leave
gonna
and
ask
to
anyone else who
cooperate.
continues to outburst when it's not the time to leave after this, please respect the process, and I look forward to
Madam Chair,
allowing.
can I have the floor for a hot second? Hi, I'm Mike Cohen. I'm your security for the day. Everybody needs to get along. They don't have to get along, but they have to do it peacefully. Here are the rules. You outburst, any more outbursts, and I'll enforce the City of Portland rules of this building, and I'll exclude you from this building for 24 hours.
Yes.
There will not be an argument. You'll be out this door. You can take it up there.
Are you
Okay.
a city employee?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
No, he works for G4S.
Yeah.
Please, okay, I'm gonna ask everyone, I am going to ask again, that everyone please respect the invited testimony. I don't care which side you're for, what in particular you're here to do, but I would like for everyone to respect everyone, because we do after this have many people who are coming up, and I would like to make sure that we as a commission can hear from everyone. I'm sorry for that interruption, sir. Please continue.
Thank you. So during that month and a half, we have seen that there have not been the same outcry for the Jewish people and for the innocent victims on our side, that from the same human rights concerns that we see for the Palestinians. So we, as a Jewish people, are very concerned for the Palestinian people, and we echo the cries when there are innocent people on any side of any conflict that are hurt. We say it in our synagogues, we say it in our study halls, we say it all over the place. However, we feel hurt when there seems to be no concern for the human rights of Jews in their ancient homeland, where they've been living for so many years. And it's particularly painful when the Human Rights Commission in Portland took on a situation which really, as you mentioned, really you cannot fix the problem from here. Yet, you took on an issue of divesting from companies that really, whether we call that human rights, that they are involved in human rights offenses or not, really depends on whether we take a position on that particular conflict, because we have to understand the conflict before we can decide whether there are human rights violations. Particularly, I'd like to talk about Motorola. Motorola has been a company that has provided for communication between the security forces and between the medical forces in Israel. BBC yesterday came out with a study showing that the Palestinian and Israelis have been working side by side in taking care of all of the victims of these atrocities that have been going on, the terrorism that's going on. And they show how Motorola actually is helping these companies, these peoples come together and work together. And actually Motorola is the company that is used for communication in the Hatzalah and in the first aid agencies that these two peoples are using. And boycotting them is actually hurting the very work that these two peoples have working together. I call upon you to really rescind this ill-informed resolution on the basis of that This company helps us, it helps the Palestinian people, it helps the Israeli people, and we are suffering too, and we have human rights as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Reverend Ann Emery. I am rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Salem, Oregon. And I am honored to be here. I've been part of an interfaith conversation for some time because I believe in building relationships. And I have a few things I'd like to say, and I thank you for being here to hear me. Caterpillar doesn't need me to speak on behalf of their company, nor does G4S or Motorola or Hewlett-Packard. That's not why I'm here. In the dim past, I was an economics major, but that's not why I'm here either. I'm here as a member of clergy, a representative of the Episcopal Church, and the keeper of a vow to respect the dignity of every human being. I'm here because our presiding bishop of the last 9 years, Catherine Jefferts Shorey, urges investment in legitimate development in Palestine's West Bank and in Gaza, rather than focusing on divestment or boycotts directed against Israel. She said the Episcopal Church does not endorse divestment or boycott, which will only end in punishing Palestinians economically. It's through increased engagement and the building of relationships that peace will come. We can encourage dialogue between Israeli and Palestinian leaders. We can refrain from defunding hopeful initiatives. We can urge Israel to freeze the settlement activity. We can urge the Palestinian Authority to recognize Israel's right to exist. We can condemn violence everywhere. Bishop Suhail Dawani, head of the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem, has echoed Bishop Catherine's call for deeper engagement through visits and relationship building with the living stones, the people of the land, who face economic hardship and such other challenges. The Diocese of Jerusalem, which encompasses 6,000 Anglicans in 27 parishes throughout Jordan, Palestine, Israel, Syria, and Lebanon, sponsors some 20 educational institutions for more than 6,400 Arab children, regardless of faith, which includes kindergarten through high school classes and centers for children with special needs, as well as technical and vocational institutions. Sarai Nosebe, Palestinian professor of philosophy and president of the Al-Quds University in East Jerusalem, has said, "The reason I don't believe the boycott is the way to go is that I believe peace must be built on the bridge between two civil societies. While some people believe that one way to deal with Israelis was to bash them on their heads, quote unquote, the other way is to reach to their hearts, and it's the reaching out that's important." You might be interested to know that until December 2002, Sarai Nosebe was the representative of the Palestinian National Authority in East Jerusalem. What can we do? Rescind your support of BDS. It's not the way to peace. It's a strategy, often said, that it is modeled on the campaign against South Africa, which also was not designed to promote peace, but to dismantle the state. BDS leaders abhor cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians and often attack organizations that seek to bring the two sides together in a peaceful manner. I'm here to urge you, if it is your tradition, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, to build relationship without taking sides in an overheated situation, to work together for a society of peace with justice, for that vision that is shared by all Abrahamic faiths. Please withdraw your support for the BDS policy. Salam, shalom, peace.
My name is Craig Byrne. I'm here with the Jewish Community Relations Council. The dispute between Israelis and Palestinians is complicated, it's difficult, it involves mistakes and faults by both sides at times. No one is perfect, and no one is less deserving than the other side of the right to life, freedom, and peace. Both peoples have legitimate claims on the land, and the only way these issues will be resolved is through negotiations and mutual respect. Anybody who tells you otherwise, anybody who says only one side is right and only one side is wrong, is at best ill-informed. The current head of the Israeli government, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has offered to meet anywhere, anytime, without preconditions to negotiate a two-state solution. He's been met with silence for the last few years from the Palestinian leadership. And the last few months, as you've heard, in Israel have been terrible. Hundreds of stabbings, attacks with cars, firebombs, attacks on attacks on Israeli citizens by Palestinians, and this is happening on both sides of the pre-1967 borders. The Palestinian leadership, unfortunately, has poured gasoline on the flames. Mahmoud Abbas, chairman of the Palestinian Authority, recently praised every drop of blood spilled in Jerusalem, that's a direct quote, and said that the Jews desecrate the Temple Mount, where Al-Aqsa Mosque is located, with their filthy feet. And again, that's a direct quote. That's the president of the Palestinian Authority. He refuses to condemn and call for an end to the attacks in Arabic to his own people. Members of his cabinet and the leaders of his party regularly call for the murder of Israelis and for Jews to be wiped from the land. These are facts. And at this time, in the middle of all this, the Human Rights Commission comes along with this measure. Is there a condemnation from this organization for the terror attacks and the murders of the Israeli citizens? Is there a condemnation of the incitement to violence? No. And what signal does this send? What message is communicated about the values and rights of the lives of Israeli citizens? Look, there are extremists on both sides, but the vast majority of Israelis would like to live at peace with their neighbors. And they would be willing to take risks, as they've done in the past with Jordan and Egypt, if they thought there was a real chance for real peace. Unfortunately, bitter experiences taught the Israelis that they need to protect themselves because their enemies are real and are out to attack them. The wall that people complain about was built because there was a wave of terrorist attacks after Yasser Arafat rejected the peace proposals made by the Israelis at Camp David in 2000. And the attacks only stopped when the wall stopped the terrorists from easy access to their intended victims. Before it was built, over 1,000 Israelis had been killed in the course of about a year. If Israel were as large as the United States, that would equate to about 40,000 dead in 1 year. Are you telling me it would be wrong to build a wall to effectively deter terrorists who killed 40,000 Americans in 1 year? Now, if you don't know the history and you don't hear from both sides, then you're getting a distorted version of the facts. If you haven't heard from the companies who are being targeted in this measure, if you haven't listened to those opposed to this measure to understand why it's unfair, if you've already made up your mind that in favor of this resolution without hearing both sides, then you have violated this Commission's mandate. If outside groups condemn only one side and send messages that the lives and rights of that side are worth less than the lives and rights on the other side, that only serves to isolate the group and invalidate its legitimate concerns, make it harder for that side to take risks for peace. If you really want to increase the chances of a just and peaceful solution in the Middle East, condemn the incitement to violence, urge both sides to sit down and negotiate a fair deal to share the land in peace and mutual respect. I have to believe this Commission is made up of good-hearted people, intelligent people acting on serious concerns about human rights for all, with the best of intentions. But I think you have been misled into approving a resolution that sounded very good on its face by people with a divisive political agenda contrary to this Commission's charter. This Commission failed to demand fair representation of both sides, perhaps even unaware there would be opposition to the noble-sounding resolution, or that people might legitimately disagree about it. Now, these misconceptions have been brought to your attention, and hopefully you have a better appreciation of the complicated issues involved, and I urge you, along with all the other speakers, to find the courage to admit the mistake and change your mind. Thank you.
Hello, I am Rabbi Joshua Rose of Congregation Sherry Torah in Portland, Oregon, and I thank you for your public service. The issue surrounding Israel and the situation with the Palestinian people is a complex one. And my perspective that I thought I would offer is slightly different from the others. I would like to give the Commission a sense of where the attempt to boycott and divest of these 4 companies and the BDS movement in general fall within this debate. To put it simply, the BDS movement that we've been discussing thus far falls very, very far outside the mainstream in the debate about Israel. It may surprise you to learn that within the very broad political spectrum, within the community concerned about these issues, there is near universal rejection of the BDS movement. Let me give you some prominent examples, because I think this is important for you to understand the issues that you've taken on. So some prominent examples. J Street. It's an organization that is a fierce critic of Israeli policies. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard of this. Continually challenging the Israeli government on its policies. J Street opposes BDS. Rabbis for Human Rights, an Israeli organization engaged in activism and advocacy and civil disobedience, challenging Israeli policies with regard to the Palestinian people, opposes BDS. The New Israel Fund, to take another prominent, well-known organization, a civil and human rights organization advocacy group within Israel, which is also engaged in challenging Israeli policies, opposes BDS. These are all human rights organizations. Human rights organizations, organizations whose explicit purpose is to address human rights concerns and to act on them. They are human rights organizations, and they oppose BDS. And I could name many more. I've chosen 3 prominent examples. They've been fierce critics of Israeli policy, and they all reject BDS. This is not a debate, in my opinion, about whether or not human rights are valuable. You noted that human rights discussions are always controversial and difficult, and I acknowledge that that is true. This is not a question about whether human rights are important. All of those organizations are human rights organizations that address and tackle these issues from their perspective, sometimes quite controversial perspective, all the time, and they reject BDS. You may also be unaware that some of Israel's most vocal critics in intellectual and academic circles oppose BDS. 2 examples. Noam Chomsky, a prominent scholar and activist, famously outspoken critic of Israel policy, who in fact has come under very intense criticism from supporters of Israel. Noam Chomsky opposes BDS. Norman Finkelstein, probably even more reviled by some people who are supporters of Israel, activist and academic, relentlessly critical of Israel. He referred to BDS as a hypocritical, dishonest cult. These are his words. These are scholars whose work I and many others find to be unfairly critical of Israel at times, and yet they are opposed to BDS on moral and political grounds, and they are not alone. Just over a year ago, 620 American and Israeli academics signed a petition opposing the BDS approach, and these are voices from across the spectrum. Why would it be that from the political right to the left and to the very far left, BDS has been soundly rejected and so strongly criticized? Among other reasons, some of which you've heard, are that some leaders within the movement propose indiscriminate policies that go beyond challenging Israeli actions to the very existence of Israel. Some of its advocates have an ugly record of falsehood and outrageous slander, using terms such as genocide and apartheid, terms you yourselves heard in public debate, for which there is zero basis, and which all people of conscience should find chilling and outrageous and terribly insulting to the actual human beings on our planet who have suffered the experiences of genocide and apartheid, totally demeaning of the truth. And because I suggest its leaders consistently use a double standard and have a casual relation to the truth, I believe that this body has been terribly misled and was not given sufficient information to make a responsible decision in keeping with the very rich promise of its mission. Portland deserves better, and I urge you to reconsider the decision, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Rose, representing Rabbi Emanuel Rose.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? We couldn't hear
Yes, Lorraine Rose, representing Rabbi Emanuel Rose, who is ill today and couldn't come. And all I have to say is he has always been one for human rights, not just Jewish rights, and strongly urges you to rescind this BDS thing. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Noah Cohen and a junior at Riverdale High School. I am an active member of the Jewish as well as the greater Portland community, and am a leader of the Jewish youth group NCSY. I'm here to represent my peers from my high school, from the Jewish community, and from the greater Portland. Divesting from companies that support Israel does not advance or promote the creation of a peaceful solution, which is what I assume, as the Human Rights Commission, is a solution you desire above all else. But in fact, it is simply adding fuel to the fire. This divestment is openly laying blame on one side of the conflict. Any person well-informed on Israeli and Palestinian history is aware that it is a conflict, not a one-sided affair. The divestment officially declares that Portland does not support the families of innocent Israelis murdered, stabbed in the streets in cold blood in front of their children, partners, and friends, or the hundreds and thousands of Americans that have made a life for themselves there, and the Palestinian and Arab civilians that proudly call Israel their home. The Human Rights Commission is turning its back on innocent people of all races and religion. Israel is a democratic melting pot that represents all kinds of people all over the world. How can we, as supporters of human rights and strong believers in the fact that every human life matters, choose to disregard and lay blame on 8 million people? That is not only hypocritical, but morally wrong. Choosing to antagonize a whole country seems to be very narrow-minded. If it is in the world's best interest to divest from companies that support Israel, then we should throw out our phones, our computers, our hybrid cars. We'll need to stop using voicemail. We'll need to stop using Facebook, as many of their add-ons and applications are developed in Israel. We'll have to destroy all personal medication. Israel's Teva Pharmaceuticals, the largest generic drug company in the world, manufactures many of our medicines. Human progress would simply have to be set back. Also, an important note, if we or our loved ones are suffering from cancer, we should note not to take any form of medication for treatment. Israeli scientists have been working at the forefront of oncology for decades. AIDS, HIV, diabetes, the list goes on. Israel has provided so much for the world that it is impossible to completely divest. Rather than focusing our energy on punishing a country and a particular people, we should, in the spirit of human rights, focus on building peace between all people. Isn't that the intent of the Human Rights Commission? Please rethink your decision in the name of all human rights. Thank you.
My name is Sherry Fishman. I'm a retired teacher, therapist, and I've spent my entire adult life working on issues of social justice and human rights. I laud working towards justice and equity, and I've struggled for it in every movement there was. I was part of all the movements back in the 60s and have never stopped. I'm a supporter of Israel and its right to exist, and I want a just Israel. So now I've introduced myself. I'm also a former chair of the Community Relations Committee of Jewish Federation. I was on the Oregon Area Jewish Committee Board. I'm a member of Temple Beth Israel. I was on the Oregon Holocaust Resource Center Board. And in all of the work I've done, I was privileged to share a lot with Emily Godfrey. Emily, of blessed memory, would have been honored that you have an award that you offer in her name. But Emily would have been very hurt to know about this action to divest of these companies, because Emily believed in unity. Emily believed in being proactive in how you work to make change and for justice and equity. Emily would have wanted you to consider all complexity and understand that all sides have pain from the conflict, and that most people, both sides, want peace and justice. Emily believed that Israel has a right to exist, as this country has a right to exist. And who can tell me, anyone in this room, tell me that we don't have to deal with our own human rights abuses in this country, from its founding all the way until now. And yet, if we really, as this young woman so beautifully said, try to divest of all the companies that do harm as well as good, you wouldn't have anything. Wouldn't it be better then to honor both my friend Emily's memory and to strive towards human rights if we really try to correct injustice by taking the stance of investment instead of divestment? You know, some of these companies you've talked about also have done some good there. I don't know if anybody knows that when the West Bank was undergoing a real thriving development, Caterpillar was part of building there, not just tearing down. You're going to find a better machine? Okay, go find one. But let me tell you, they're going to be culpable too. That's the reality of the world. We have to look at the complexity of issues, the whole picture, before decisions are made. And so I join my friends, my community, my colleagues in asking you to reconsider this and think about working towards something, not against something that actually just adds more wounds. I feel the same way Rabbi Fisher does. I was down there at Pioneer Courthouse Square with many members and rabbis of my community when somebody set a mosque on fire in Corvallis after the shoe bomber was intercepted. We were all there for the social justice of the Muslim community here. When there have been needs for civil rights marches, many of us have participated. But we haven't seen anybody crying for the lost lives in Israel. Nobody talking about, when Charlie Hebdo happened, about what happened to the Jewish people in the butcher shop. We do, but where are the rest of the voices? So think about that when you make decisions, and think about, is this really justice you're striving for, or is it just buying one more truth as it looks true without having the entirety of facts and complexity? Thank you.
Joe, that's it for our invited testimony. Commissioners, at this time, within item number 4, we have gone over time so far. However, we're going to make 10 minutes of time, as was the case in October, for commissioner discussion. I would ask that we take what we've just heard and the upcoming public comment to heart as we look forward at any decisions we make, or as we look at the decision that was made unanimously on October 7th. Throughout our discussion, and Sam, I'll ask you to speak first. As I mentioned earlier, our goal is to continue to look at if we have any new information as it relates to the 4 American companies and their human rights violations, which we asked the next group to go to the Socially Responsible Investments Committee, who at that point can then make recommendations for the City of Portland to either divest, do not buy, or go further with that decision. Again, the City of Portland Human Rights Commission does not have the power to make a resolution or policy on divestment in any way, shape, or form, but we're here to hear about human rights issues as it relates to American companies. And so, Sam, I'll ask you first to go ahead and offer what you'd like. I would just mention that we have a very limited time, and we do have 45 members of the public who have signed up. So let's allow all commissioners time to discuss, and then we'll move forward.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me start again. My name is Sam Saxon. I'm a Human Rights Commissioner for the City of Portland. I've been a Human Rights Commissioner for about 2.5 years. I'm also a member of the Jewish community. I want to thank everyone who has come here to speak and to have their voices heard or their cards. I think it's appreciative, and I think this is something we should have done from the start. I really want to make a statement. I wanted to make a statement before we got started because I felt that the message that we were sending as a commission was that we all support the decision that we made. And I didn't want the meeting to start that way. I want to apologize to everyone here and to the City of Portland. As a Human Rights Commissioner, I did not do my due diligence. I make no excuse, only an explanation. I did not attend the September meeting, and when we voted, I voted the conscience of the Commission without ever reading the material, without ever looking it over. I'm just being honest with you. Whether it looks good or not, that's the truth. It was only after I voted yes that members of Occupation Free got up and testified. And many of the comments and the words that they stated I found to be anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. And I got up and exited the meeting in protest. Even then, I did not put two and two together that what I voted on was a divestment in companies of Israel. So I apologize because as a Human Rights Commissioner, you deserve better, and I should have done a better job of reading the material. That won't happen again. Regardless, I don't know that even had I read the material that I would have voted differently or not. I don't think any of us had a clear understanding of this issue. I know I didn't. Just being Jewish doesn't give me a full understanding of this issue. So I did not have a full understanding. I have a better understanding now. So I want to offer that, but I also want to say that I renounce my vote on this divestment. And I do not stand together with the rest of the members in support of this vote. And I hope that we will have an opportunity so that I can rescind and renounce my vote at some time. And again, I do appreciate everyone being here. Thank you.
I'm Marcia Suttonberg, and I would like to echo what Sam has said. I did not understand last month at our vote what we were voting for. It was presented as a socially responsible investment action, and that sounded good to me, and I hadn't read the materials ahead of time either, and I voted without really thinking much about it, and it was only when public comment happened and I joined Sam outside, I walked out, I was so shocked at the level of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic statement that was being made. I think I was embarrassed at that point. I didn't know quite what to do because the vote had already been taken, and I felt my heart was beating, and I was kind of like sweating and upset. But I felt like what happened, and in some ways I thought, well, it's probably not going to get any place anyway, and probably nobody's going to pay any attention to it, and so I sort of like let it go. And it wasn't until a few days later that it came to my attention that there was concern in the community, and I said I wasn't surprised. I had informally rescinded my vote very strongly. I've made that clear to the other commissioners, and I hope that we will, after we hear more testimony from people, take a vote again. I really appreciate everyone being here today. It underscores to me the importance of when we're hearing an issue that is so important in the community that we really consider all sides. And I am glad everyone is here from both sides. I think that as a public body, we really have a responsibility to listen and hear what you all have to say. So I thank you for being here.
Audrey Alberson, thank you everyone for coming. I have two statements I would like to make, and one is that as a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission for the City of Portland, I take very seriously my job, and I take very seriously the idea that we need to do our homework and understand what we're voting on, and to...
Really?
Yeah. We are volunteers, but we've been put in this position and been asked by the City of Portland to consider issues of human rights universally. This is not about Israel, it is not about Palestine, it is not about any particular country or religion. This is about human rights universally for all people, and that is
Do we have other commissioners during this discussion time that would like to offer any perspective right now? Teresa?
One of my concerns that I don't want to let go by is that some of the testimony that I heard had very civil Islamophobia coded inside it. Right? And I'm not here for that, and I am certain that if people are really convinced of one particular thing, that they can express that appropriately, as several of the people did. Sticking to the facts, sticking to the values behind what they say, without talking down about other people. And you can laugh about that and think that I'm not paying enough attention or whatever it is, but I heard very clear testimony, I'm sorry I didn't hear her name, from the student from Riverside and others, that was not about talking down about others. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of people having their say in a clear, supportive way. But it's not okay for me for people to talk badly about others, even if they use polite words.
Daniel, and then I'll ask Seattle.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Franco, Commissioner. I wanted to say thank you for everybody who came. It would be great if everybody came every month to all the things that we do on a regular basis. We're dealing with a lot of important issues. Some of the criticism has been like, who are we to say anything? And to be honest, we're nobody. We're volunteers, we don't get paid. If you're not happy with what I do, cut my salary. But if you all came every month, we would get so much more done. So don't just go home, regardless of what we decide, be angry with us or with each other. Come back. The reason we did this vote and decided was because somebody brought it. Those of you that weren't there, well, everything's public. Our meeting laws are public, even our emails have been requested. So, if you truly care about human rights, not just one side or the other, come regularly and come often.
Siana.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Siana Edmo. I'm Shoshone Bannock, Nez Perce, Yakima, and I serve here as a commissioner. These are my ancestral homelands. And I really don't want to make light of, I want to acknowledge everybody's, pardon me, very, I think everybody in Portland, I think particularly the folks in this room, the rise in the violence in the Middle East has a profound effect on all of us as Portlanders. And I think that is demonstrated through your attendance here today. And I'm glad to see you all here. And it is my absolute intent as a commissioner serving the city of Portland to renounce violations of human rights. regardless of where they occur. This country was taken from my ancestors through this kind of violation. And I agree that this, the idea of cultural relativism, that we don't have a say in this conflict, to me, should be rejected just by our investment and presence here. This profoundly affects all of us. A human rights violation across the world does affect folks here. It affects me when we talk about issues of indigenous rights, of homelands, of places we call home. And we hear issues, we're not experts by any means, none of us are, but we hear issues that are brought forth by our community. We highly value your input. And also saying that I don't want to take time away from folks who are going to come to the mic and speak, but I also believe we do need some balance, and that probably not this meeting, but next meeting, I would love for us to entertain a motion to join in the lawsuit or support, a statement of support around the lawsuit that's being brought against Facebook for their complicit allowing of reposting of extremist videos, now depicting and reenacting some of the stabbings that have taken place, and I find that absolutely reprehensible, and I think too we should look at all sides, but not shy away from making statements that violate folks' human rights. That's all I have to say. Thank
you. I have just one thing to add, but quickly. I heard today, and I've heard in emails, this isn't about Israel. This is about Israel, or we wouldn't be here. This is about divesting in companies. As a Jew that sits on this commission, I'm offended and appalled and quite tired of people trying to say that this isn't about Israel, this isn't about Jews, that Jews and Israel aren't the same. For me personally, Israel and Jews are the same. We're one and the same. And I find it to be anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, so I'd ask my commission to stop doing that.
I'd ask again the community in the room to please respect the commission as we hold our discussion. Thank you.
I'm Jewish and I'm not a Zionist. So
Good. I'm going to again ask the community in the room to respect the time, just as we did earlier, to ensure that we can continue to hear from the commission, and then we will take public comment at that time.
Yeah, I'm done. I don't have anything else.
Okay, Ashley.
See if this, okay, it does work. I just want to extend appreciation to everyone who came today. It really does mean a lot to us to hear from you. I also just want it to be known that I also take the charge as a volunteer community member serving on the City Human Rights Commission very seriously. And I do my homework in between, and I am fairly studied and experienced on this particular issue. And it really pains me to now be in the position of hearing things that might result in further polarizing or something else along those lines. My hope and my intent in participating in the conversation that led to the action that the HRC took was to support and uphold our charge as human rights commissioners in applying a universal lens of human rights to every decision, every consideration, everything that we do. And that was the spirit, the mind, everything, the heart that I brought to that decision. And I feel strongly that we did the right thing in that. That being said, I think it's really important that it be known that we recognize pain and suffering on both sides and are very sensitive to that reality. There's been loss and trauma and hardship on both sides, and never, ever should a human rights body
be actively engaged in conversations about winners and losers or who's right and who's wrong and picking sides, essentially. And that's never what we intended to do and not what I feel we did do. This is really about 4 U.S. corporations that are in business and are complicit in certain things that have to do with human rights. And so I just want it to be known that obviously you're seeing a variance of opinion here, and I wanted to share mine and my process that I went through and that I was upholding the universal human rights lens that we use in all of our determinations and decision making.
You're here.
I'd also like to speak on. I'd also like to speak on the using the lens of human rights, and I'd even ask everyone to adopt that lens for a moment, because when looking at the packets that we were given for this vote, and so I'm speaking exactly about the vote, I think it was presented to us in a way where it fit with our mission and with the international laws that still stand. I want to address the lives in Israel, and I want to apologize. I feel if there was a vote for us to also stop killing from Israeli people, we would vote for that too. But this vote was about the Palestinian lives, and it's actually not even about them. It's really about the companies that are engaged in violent actions. Like when I saw that children are in detention centers as young as 9 years old, that is a human rights issue, and it's a reason to vote to stop funding these companies. As well, these companies are also in America and in other places around the world, and so it connects to issues that are very real for us here in Portland too. And so I urge everyone to look at the packets given to us and look at what these companies are involved in, and thanks for being here.
Alan?
Good evening, my name is Alan Lazo. I believe that I'm the longest seated commissioner here, and I'm going to reference that back in a second, but what I wanted to bring forward for folks who may not know, this is the resolution that formed the city's Socially Responsible Investments Committee. And one of the charges of that is that they should address concerns about impacts on human rights. And so when this proposal came to us, and we recognized that this other group was involved in evaluating the impact of human rights on the city's investments, we did feel that it fit with our mission to both advise members of the city council and fits with our mission to uphold the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So I just wanted to bring that forward in case there were folks that weren't clear about why it fit with how we do our work. I also want to go back and address the fact that I'm the longest standing commissioner. It also means that I'm probably the one person up here who spent the most time working with Emily Gottfried. And I know Ms. Fishman addressed Emily. And what I worked on with Emily, one of the things that she was passionate about with this body was intergroup dialogue. And I worked an intergroup dialogue program with Emily, and the basis for that dialogue was bringing together groups with historical conflict. I didn't know Emily well enough to know where she would have stood on this specific issue. I did work with her long enough and sat through dialogue with her to know that she would be proud to know that groups can come together and civilly discuss issues with the goal of understanding one another's perspectives better so that we can move forward on real solutions. So my hope is that that's what all of us are here to do tonight. And so I appreciate that all of you are here and that you're bringing forward those perspectives so that all of us can better understand them. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other commissioners that would like to say anything as it relates to this? Okay. stated in my opening what the Human Rights Commission is charged to do as a whole. What I would state myself as a commissioner is that I too, as has been shared earlier, hold my personal duty to do my research and take the oath that we all took extremely seriously. To have been sent multiple emails with copious amounts of information, with videotaped and transcripted information about the meeting that was held, regardless of if you were there, and then been asked to take the month's worth of time that we all had to do our own research and to, as we all do for every decision we make as members of the community, bring our whole self and bring the knowledge that we do hold to the table when we make decisions. We specifically held, continue to, and will remain to hold a public process so that the community can hold us to that. I believe that the process that we held, the month's worth of time that we took each to look at and make this decision, was a process that was duly held, and I appreciate all of the commissioners who took the time to do that. To second a motion and then unanimously vote for the motion and then step away from the motion that you just seconded because of whatever pressure that you got post making that decision, to me, is not a respectable, is not taking your job seriously, and is not a respectable place to be. That said, any decision we make, as was stated earlier, has never been with the intention to divide communities. In fact, the decision that we made was to further the conversation that was on the table to the correct city committee that specifically looks at divestment or adding someone to a do not buy list, adding companies to a do not buy list. We as a commission do not do that. We as a commission on October 7th did not take an action to do that. What we did say was going to the Socially Responsible Investment Committee, which delves even deeper and continues to use a public process, was the next place in which to go to look at divestment of 4 American companies and their issues as it relates to human rights violations. I state that over and over again because our goal as we step into the next portion of this meeting is to continue to hear from community members, and if we hear new information about the 4 companies and their changes in what we've heard before, or all of the research that we've done on our own, whether it was looking at the UN, Amnesty International, or the Human Rights Coalition and what they have stated as it relates to divestment of these particular 4 companies, then I ask us as a commission to look at that and help it inform our further decisions. However, as it relates to the decision we've made, we cannot, as individual commissioners, attempt to rescind a vote, especially if we've seconded or it was unanimously accepted. We can certainly change our mind, but we would need to go through a full process in which we hear new information that would change and or make the vote that we took before null and void. And so through this process that we're going to go through further, I look forward to hearing from community members if they're interested. And if a commissioner would like to do so, they can certainly raise an option to motion for a new vote. And I would ask that that happen if they've heard new information about the companies. And so we're going to move into the next agenda item, which would be taking public comment.
Should we do a time check on that, should we?
Are you taking public comments now?
We're at 5:25.
Are you taking public comments now?
We are going to step into public comment for those who signed up, yes. And so right now at 5:25, we have 45 members who are signed up at 2 minutes each. That's going to put us over the 6:30 agenda time that we specified. That would move us to 7 p.m.
Are you afraid to use these roads? Is that why you?
So if we move to 7 p.m., our commissioner is okay with moving the agenda to that time so that we can hear all of the folks who've signed up for public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay, we're going to start out with Walter John Boris, and we're going to go back and forth between the two mics that are here. We ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes, and then we will move forward. Walter?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Shabri, can you call also the next person on the list so they can line up?
Walter, and then Melissa. After Melissa, we have Noah Cohen. After Noah, we have Rob Michael Kaplan.
Rabbi.
We'll call them and then Walter.
Thank you. I'm the Reverend Dr. Walter John Boris. I'm the Conference Minister for the Central Pacific Conference of the United Church of Christ. I'm speaking today to express my support for the Human Rights Commission's endorsement of Do Not Buy list. These companies join in maintaining the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, a major human rights abuse against the Palestinian people. I thank you and I urge you to continue your careful and thoughtful work. As a conference minister, I am the chief executive of the Central Pacific Conference. Our area includes 35 congregations in Oregon, including 22 congregations in the Portland metro area. Delegates to our annual meeting in September of 2014 overwhelmingly approved a resolution calling for divestment from companies profiting from the unjust Israeli occupation. The same resolution was approved this past June by a wide margin again by delegates to our national meeting, our General Synod, the national meeting of the United Church of Christ. This is a human rights issue, not a religious one. Our churches and our clergy have long partnered with synagogues and rabbis on a wide variety of justice issues. The Jewish people are our sisters and brothers, and we do cry with them. But our Palestinian Muslims and Christians are also our sisters and brothers, and we cry with them because they are living under political and military oppression as a result of the Israeli occupation of their land and increasing numbers of illegal settlements. In September of 2014, my wife and I were part of an ecumenical group visiting Palestine, Israel, to get a clearer understanding of the conflict. The group that hosted us was widely regarded as a pro-Israeli organization. We heard from both Israeli and Palestinian political leaders, Israeli police, and military and everyday citizens, and our hearts were torn as we listened to the pain and the fear and the fatigue of all of those people. In the end, it was clear to me that the Israeli government holds the power, and they're the only ones that can bring an end to this occupation. Thank you.
Next, we have Melissa Darby. Melissa, before you speak, I'm going to ask the members of the public if it is possible to maybe hold either your agreement or disagreement to maybe something that's nonverbal or quiet so that we can move forward. We have just extended.
Maybe they can twinkle.
There you go. Maybe we can twinkle if that's what you appreciate. And we're going to move forward. We have Melissa Darby. After that, we have Noah Cohen. I've heard that she's left. Is Noah Cohen still? She's okay. And Rabbi Michael Kaplan? Okay. So Melissa?
Hello. I'm an anthropologist and a historian and a graduate of the Middle East Studies Department at Portland State University. I have my master's degree in anthropology. As such, I have an informed understanding of the history, peoples, and cultures in the current religious and political situation in Israel. When I was in high school, I was a foreign exchange student to a country called Lebanon, just north of Israel. I was 17. When I arrived at my host family's home, one of the first things I asked is, let's go see Bethlehem and Jerusalem, because it was only the distance between Eugene and Portland. They looked at me like I was crazy. They hadn't been able to see the holy sites. They were Christian since before 1967. Our country is founded on principles of equality and freedom, and I was naive and I believed Israel was like that too. How many in this room believe God gave the Jews the land? Raise your hand.
How many in this room believe God gave the Jews the land and not the Arabs?
Oh, yeah.
Praise, testify, I know you believe it. Since October 1st, the health ministry reported 74 Palestinians killed and injured since October 1st, including 17 kids. There were 89 attacks on journalists. The great irony about Israel is that many of the Jews have been victims over hundreds of years, and especially in this last century, by supremacist organizations and countries who persecuted them, and we all know about that. The great irony is they're doing similar things to these other people. Israel's behavior is the burr under the saddle of the whole Middle East, and I urge you to support the BDS movement.
Before we move on, I'm going to ask everyone in the audience and those who are signed up for public comment. I cannot ask you to specifically address anything. What I can ask you to do is to hopefully respect everyone that is here today. I would ask that you don't share Islamophobia, any kind of, I just would ask you to go ahead and respect everyone who's in the room. And if you do have information again about the 4 companies, we are interested in hearing about that. Again, I can't change what people are going to say here during public comment, but I look forward to a respectable time here. And Rabbi, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rabbi Michael Kaplan, and I'm the rabbi at Congregation Avad Achim and on Barbara Boulevard. A few weeks ago, I received a call to come down to my synagogue immediately. It was early morning, and as I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a large blue swastika had been spray painted on the exterior wall of our building. We quickly covered it with a sheet, and as soon as we were able, we sprayed it over with white paint. This incident caught the attention of the local news media, as well as some politicians. I received phone calls from many community leaders, including Senator Merkley and Congressman Omenauer. Both told me how disgusted they were at the show of hatred and anti-Semitism, how they were ashamed that this could happen in Oregon. I spoke to them about the amazing outpouring of support we received from so many people who saw what was happening, and through calls, emails, and contributions we received, they sent the message that Portland will not stand for this type of anti-Jewish sentiment. I assured both the senator and congressman that what happened to our synagogue was the work of one misguided individual who did not represent what our city stands for. This is what I believed. That is until I heard about the vote by this commission to divest from the 4 companies operating in the state of Israel. Human rights violations are something that should not be swept under the rug and must be dealt with. It is an exemplary thing to do, and the members of this commission deserve to be recognized for working towards this noble goal. The BDS movement, however, works to delegitimize Israel by using fabricated human rights violations as a backdrop to serve their own agenda. Is Israel perfect? No. But does it deserve to be the target of such vicious attacks by those who have tried to wipe it off the map since before its formation as an independent state? Al-Husseini called for a boycott against Jews in the Holy Land in 1933. Arab nations imposed boycotts again in 1945 and expanded it in 1948 with the establishment of the State of Israel. Were there human rights violations then? No. At least back then, everyone was honest. An officially stated goal of those boycotts was, and I quote, the liquidation of Israel. If one was truly interested in looking for human rights violations, one could look at the hundreds of thousands of people killed in Syria, the throwing of homosexuals off rooftops to death by ISIS training camps, and the list could go on and on. But the one thing I wanted to leave this commission with, and that is I started with the swastika that was spray painted on the wall of our synagogue is still there. Maybe covered by a thin sheet of spray paint, but it's still there. The focus of the land of the state of Israel for boycotting, for divesting, and for sanctioning, and ignoring the human rights violations in all of its neighboring countries, where in Israel, the rights are granted to women, to homosexuals, to people of any color, any religion, any creed.
Okay, we're past 2 minutes, so we have to respect
and one last point that I was asked by Bob Hornstein to mention was that the information that was received, and you mentioned earlier, was not complete, was inaccurate, and I think that this commission does deserve to do its due diligence, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak and for the other side. And hopefully there will be another
Thank you. I'm going to ask that the next 6 folks just come on up and we'll go ahead and go to different mics here. Next, I have Ned Roche, Kate Lohr, Kanan, Wael Elisani.
Yeah.
Okay. And Randy Rosenfeld. And Will Fuller. Those are the next 6. Ned.
Members of the Commission, my name is Ned Roche and I speak on behalf of Occupation Free Portland. There will be other people speaking, but I speak on behalf of the campaign. I'm named after a great uncle of mine, Uncle Noah, who was murdered in the concentration camps of Europe. I grew up in a family where our devotion to Judaism and to Israel knew no bounds. I was deeply impressed by a rabbi by the name of Abraham Joshua Heschel, who said to all of us,
that's not you, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Who said to all of us, in a democracy, some are guilty, but all are responsible. I took that teaching dearly, and it has led me to avenues in my life that I can't tell you how rewarding they've been. It took me to Israel to study at the Hebrew University. I lived in Israel for a while. But I always kept coming back to the fact that we have responsibility because we live in a democracy. Occupation Free Portland takes that responsibility seriously. We're a coalition of Jews and Christians and Muslims and others of faith and peace groups, justice groups, and many individuals who believe that there are 4 companies that are well documented with their complicity and their profiting from the Israeli occupation of Palestine that we in Portland should not be investing in. Those 4 companies are G4S. They provide surveillance systems to Israeli prisons where children are held in violation of children's rights treaties. Caterpillar, which provides D9 bulldozers to destroy Palestinian homes, build the separation wall, and build a segregated road system. It also was the machine that was used to kill Rachel Corrie from Olympia, Washington. These companies I'm talking about. Okay. So what I want to say is that we have a responsibility to do the right thing. And when the history books are written about socially responsible investing, you all will stand proud on the right side of history. Thank you.
My name is Kate Lohr. I'm the Social Justice Minister at First Unitarian Church. And I want to applaud the Human Rights Commission for what you've done. I know it's taken bravery. I am not. I'm going to repeat the words that were directed at those of us who were in favor of this. I am not dishonest. I'm not part of a cult. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not ill-informed. In fact, I've been studying this and I've just come back from Israel-Palestine. And I am not part of the BDS movement. What I am is a person that's been involved in all of our interfaith work. And I'm a person who cares deeply about human rights and our United Nations. What hasn't been stated here is that the United Nations has been trying to pass resolutions to hold Israel to international human rights violations for a number of years now. And there's one country that is blocking the passage. So we are part of the United Nations, and you are human rights commissioners. And yet we aren't free to speak about one issue because it is misconstrued as somehow bigoted. But the fact of the matter is, the rest of the world shares the concern about the human rights violations in Israel. And it's time that we allow ourselves to have civil conversation without name-calling, without assumptions, so that we can actually resolve an issue that is inflaming conflict throughout the Middle East, making wars seemingly inevitable. It's going to take a whole new tact, and this is a great start.
Next is Kanan.
Thank you. I'm here to support you. Just a very personal story.
Is that mic on?
Microphone. My name is Canaan, and that's what's left for me from the land of Canaan. That's why my father named me Canaan, because he lost the land. We are like the first people. We were raped and massacred because of thuggery that imposed upon us and about my family and other Palestinian families. The Israeli occupation, and I emphasize this, it's occupation. It's illegal, and it has been on the books illegal. So anything they do is illegal. Our job as human beings, forget that I'm Palestinian, I'm a human being. I am a citizen of Portland. We have responsibility to support human rights throughout the world. It doesn't matter wherever it applies. And it doesn't matter if it's just like these 4 companies, because there are other companies that support human rights violations throughout the world. And we need to take a stand. It's whether Israel, Iran, Syria, wherever it is. We need to stand behind our decisions. And don't let thuggery, blackmailing, intimidate you. Be human beings, and you are human beings, and thank you very much.
Boom. Next we have Wael El-Asadi.
Thank you. My name is Wael El-Asadi. I'm an alumni of Portland State University, and both of my grandparents, sides of my grandparents, were forced out from their homes in Palestine in 1948. And they were forced out to Syria, actually, and my grandma is again exiled from Syria, and it's particularly painful, actually, and cynical to hear people talking about the human rights violations that Syrians are facing to justify another human right violation. So I just wanted to speak to that. It's been 67 years since the Nakba, what Palestinians called when they were forced from their homes. In the past 24 years, 547,000 Israeli settlers are now in the West Bank in violation of international law and U.S. policy. There are 708 kilometers of apartheid wall that has been declared illegal by the International Court of Justice. 1,177 Palestinian homes were demolished just in 2014. And Gaza has been under siege for 8 years. The United Nations released a report just 1 month ago stating that in 5 years it will no longer be inhabitable because of that siege that Israel and Egypt continue on those people. And I think what's important for us to understand, and why we're talking about it here today, is because the United States government has been central for allowing these human rights violations to continue. With the tune of $3 billion of aid to Israel, with the tune of continuing to allow any kind of United Nations resolution and human rights resolution to end this, and with the support of companies like the 4 companies that are listed that are implicated in these human rights violations. And I think it's, I just want to thank,
2 minutes. It's up.
I just want to say thank you so much to the board, and I want to end very quickly with one thing that was actually on the website that I saw when I came here to get directions. It says that no oppressed people have ever secured liberty without resistance on your website. We've seen resistance today. We're going to have peace in Palestine and Israel. We're going to have peace on the streets here in the United States, but we have to stand up to do that.
Next we have Randy Rosenfeld.
My name is Randy Rosenfield, and I'm an executive and leadership team coach. And my work is about bringing people who have different goals, different points of view together to work for a common shared goal. So what's our goal? Our goal is around socially responsible investing. And really, who can be against that? But when I viewed the October 7th meeting and the materials that you considered and the public comments that you listened to, I was thinking that you were socially concerned and taking action, but need to be socially responsible, and that is by inviting many different points of view. Because indeed we're talking about really complex issues. And whenever you hear one side that vilifies the other, I suggest that they are not trusting you, not trusting that you're smart enough, and not trusting that you can be given multiple sides of a very complex issue. So what can we do? I spoke to many people prior to the meeting, just handshakes, kind of trying to break down walls. And what I would like to ask all of us to do, and ask you to do, is to please challenge and inspire the Socially Responsible Investments Committee to ask a different question and to not be about the question of who are you against, but rather who are you for, and what can we do together to challenge ourselves to support companies that promote the benefit of Palestinians and Israelis. So for example,
Time.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of slow.
Time. Well, you know, can I say something about the public testimony? We have 45 people signed up. It's going to take a long time to get through everyone's 2 minutes. Everyone would like more time. We're going to hold the 2 minutes. We're going to hold the 2 minutes. So, next person, please.
You're welcome to come to our next meeting and talk.
Submit it. Shabri, can you call the next 6 people so we can line
We
up?
do have Will Fuller, but the next 6 people,
Can I please just ask?
I'm sorry, we literally have pages and pages of people.
The socially responsible investment companies to find companies that support both.
We're gonna call Will Fuller to the mic. Will Fuller, you're next.
In case you don't know, I am Will Fuller. I'm here as a citizen of Portland.
Can't hear you.
I'm here as a citizen of Portland because my tax dollars are being invested. I want them to be invested responsibly. I favor this resolution because when all else fails, it's time to put pressure on a nation where we are its greatest supporters. A nation which holds our values as part of its constitutional basic document, not a constitution, and yet violates those principles. But this resolution is about these 4 companies, and as we've heard, people make it into a resolution about the existence of Israel, a resolution about the validity of the BDS movement, about the resolution of the whole Middle East tangle. It's not. It is about making a firm statement that we need pressure on these companies. So I recommend 3 things added to this movement as you go forward to the Social Responsible Committee. First, make it clear this is not about the existence of Israel or Israel as a Jewish state. Second, it is not a referendum on the existence of the BDS movement, which has a wide variety of opinions. Many of the people in this audience are my friends. I respect them. They're strong BDS supporters. They are not anti-Semites or anti-Israel. Third, make it specific. What does Israel have to do? What behaviors have to change so this boycott can be lifted? Thank you.
So next I'm going to call up, I'm sorry, there's someone who wrote their name and I can't read it. Is it Lisa?
The email address looks like it starts DISAA, possibly.
At nevashalom.com. Does that sound familiar?
Sounds very familiar.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just couldn't read it. And right after before you start, I'm going to call up Jules Stiver, Peter Miller, Jeff Reingard, Michael Bolsey, and Joanne Hardesty to comment after this. And, can you state your name so I can...
I'm Daniel Isaac, and I'm
Daniel Isaac,
Rabbi of Congregation of Neve Shalom, recently retired, so I am now Rabbi Emeritus. But long involved in the concerns about the Middle East. I see my good friend Frank Afranji on the other side, on the other side of the room. We stand on opposite sides of this issue, I'm sure. Frank is a Palestinian, and I wonder why this this issue really started with Israel? Why didn't it start with China? Why didn't it start with Saudi Arabia? Why didn't it start with Iran and the American companies that are involved in really in non-democratic countries? I'm a supporter of J Street, which was mentioned before, an organization which is pro-Israel and pro-peace, and often very critical of Israel. I am not a supporter of the current Israeli administration, but then they're the administration that was voted. There are presidents that I like and presidents that I don't like, but they're still my president. And this is a democratic country that voted for its administration. I printed out the proposal of BDS, and there are three action issues from BDS: ending the occupation, recognizing the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinian citizens, and respecting, protecting, and promoting the rights of Palestinian refugees. I endorse all of those, and I think many Jews endorse many of those. But if those goals are not going to be accomplished through this effort. Thank you.
Next we have Jules Steiber.
Thank you for allowing me to speak at this occasion. And my name is Jules Steiber, and I've heard a number of untruths that have been clearly stated in this meeting that really bother me. I don't have a prepared thing, but anyway, number one, Gaza. When Gaza was given over to the Muslims, the Palestinians, whoever lived there, they were given nurseries and coal frames and things to grow food and fruit and everything else. And what did they do? They destroyed it. They tore up all the buildings. They tore up all the infrastructure that the Jews had left. And the Jews had left money for them to be supported. This is how Gaza started. And this is why it ended up being somewhat of a siege of Gaza, because they themselves brought it on themselves. In 1948, all the Palestinians were not forced out of Israel. They all were not. Some were, but many of them left because they were told by all their Arab Muslim brethren that they'll have the whole state of Israel. Just leave and we'll slaughter the Jews and they'll no longer be there. So now we come down to the situation of not supporting some businesses that probably are providing jobs, providing education and help and building in the country of Israel and even in the Palestinian areas. But so we're saying, why don't we divest from them? Why not? Why should they be allowed to do business? I will cite an example. SodaStream, which existed in the West Bank and supported 200-300 Palestinian workers, was a target of BDS. After BDS was finished with them, they had to move out of the area, and 300 people lost their jobs. So don't tell me about divestiture. Divestiture loses jobs and kills Palestinians.
Next we have Peter Miller. After Peter Miller we have Jeff. Jeff, are you there? Okay. Peter.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I'm Peter Miller. I'm with the Occupation Free Portland Coalition, and I want to get back to the idea that this issue really is about human rights, and we brought our issue before a Human Rights Commission, and I think their purview was the right one, and we have the right topic of discussion. People of conscience recognize we all need to make the world a decent and fair and sustainable place to live, and people of conscience understand we should no longer invest in corporations that make the world indecent and unfair. So despite efforts to silence our discussion and punish those who stand up and speak out, human rights are still very much the issue here. The corporations Occupation Free Portland has picked have a well-documented role in human rights violations against Palestinians. When corporations profit from misery, misery and injustice become the desirable feedstock for corporate profits. We must challenge that dangerous market dynamic. Here in Portland, we have a crisis of homelessness. We have a crisis of affordability and gentrification. How can we in good conscience knowingly invest in corporations like Caterpillar, whose products are actively used to destroy other people's homes and livelihoods and create deliberate and unjust homelessness and despair somewhere else? It really is simple. The city of Portland should not invest in corporations involved with human rights violations of Palestinians or of anyone. It is one step we can take here for making the world a decent place for everyone.
Next, we have Jeff Reingold.
Well, it's Jeff Reingold.
Reingold, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Thanks for the opportunity. Got it. I'd like to quote a little bit from your press release of October 29th. You state that the HRC is not charged with making decisions nor declarations on city policy, but rather with advising elected leaders on human rights issues within the city. The statement goes on to say the Human Rights Commission works to eliminate discrimination, bigotry, to strengthen intergroup relationships and to foster greater understanding, inclusion, and justice for those who live, work, study, and worship, travel, and play in the city of Portland. Your ill-conceived recommendation does not address a human rights issue within the city, nor that it really doesn't do anything to eliminate discrimination and bigotry, to strengthen intergroup relationships, as you can see today. In fact, it does quite the opposite. As a Portland native and an American who is Jewish, I have to add that your timing of this recommendation is disturbing. Jews are literally being stabbed in the streets in Israel, and yet somehow you think it's appropriate to make this divisive recommendation now. I personally believe there should, and most likely will, be a two-state solution that allows Israel and the Palestinian people to live side by side. But I'm offended by the actions of this committee and the way in which this divisive, discriminatory, and yes, it is anti-Semitic proposal.
Yes, it is.
It is. Please respect this time.
I'm offended by the way the actions of this committee and the way this divisive, discriminatory, and anti-Semitic proposal has been promulgated. Mayor Hales and candidate Wheeler have both denounced this action. You clearly do not speak for them. You clearly do not speak for me. There's much to do here in Portland regarding human rights issues in the city. However, this work must be done in an atmosphere of inclusivity and fairness. Neither was evident in your recent action, and I suggest you reconsider and rescind this divisive and discriminatory recommendation. Thank you.
We will have Diane Doolin, Marilyn Abed, David Eichen, and I believe and Herschel Solis. Okay. Joanne, thank you.
Thank you. I want to start my comments by applauding the Human Rights Commissioners for your due diligence and for bringing this proposal forward. I guess I'm a bit troubled. I'm a bit troubled when what was before you was a question about signing on to a letter so that it would go to the socially responsible committee for additional conversation. I've heard you be called racist, anti-Semitic, and I gotta tell you, it troubles me when people of color are called racist in a atmosphere of addressing human rights issues. You had a simple question in front of you, and I think you did your due diligence. I would ask your two commissioners who didn't read their report to resign. Because it is my expectation, even though you're all volunteers, that you come to this body prepared to take action to protect the human rights of people who live, work, and worship in Portland. What I've heard tonight really disturbs me. Do we need to have a conversation about Israel and Palestine? Absolutely. Is the Jewish community open to have that conversation? I have many Jewish friends who are. But what I've heard tonight scares me. It's as if you have sheets that are covering your faces. But so I want to thank the commissioners who've done their due diligence. I want to say the question was asked and you answered it with your vote. And I want to say, let's have a community conversation about Israel and Palestine. Today is not that conversation. Thank you.
Next we have Stephen Goldberg. After Stephen Goldberg, we have Diane Doolin, Marilyn Abend, David Aiken, and Herschel Solis. Stephen?
I'm an attorney in Portland who has been involved in human rights cases both in our city and internationally. I'm also a long-term member of a Jewish congregation in Portland, Havarat Shalom. I applaud the Commission's decision to support listing of the 4 companies at issue before you. The Portland's do not buy this. Through their support of Israel's occupation of Palestine, these companies are complicit with human rights violations, which clearly violate international legal standards. The Commission's decision is not an abstract statement regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is focused on our city's financial support of global corporations which violate human rights. This is precisely what the HRC should be doing, making certain Portland understands how the decisions it makes can implicate international human rights and that our city's actions are consistent with those principles. This is not an attack on the Jewish community. At its heart, it is not an attack against Israel as much as an effort to make clear that peace between Israel and Palestinians will only happen if Israel acts consistently with principles of justice and equality, which are at the core of my religion and which are also at the core of international human rights.
Thank you, Human Rights Commission, for your principled vote based on established standards of human rights. I applaud you, and it is an honor to be at your commission meeting. My name is Reverend Diane Doolin, and I'm an ordained minister within the United Church of Christ. I serve as the chairperson for our church's regional wider church ministry, which focuses on global missions. Therefore, I've traveled several times to Palestine, Israel. In these travels, I have met with mission partners within occupied East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Israel. I have seen firsthand the impact of illegally demolished homes and uprooted orchards rendered to rubble by militarized Caterpillar tractor tanks, leaving families homeless and turning fertile, profitable fields into scenes of ruin. I've joined the crowded early morning chaos of thousands of Palestinian workers who cross daily from Bethlehem in the West Bank to Jerusalem through dehumanizing cages and turnstiles. Each one presents themselves to a Hewlett-Packard biometric equipment used to examine travel passes. Travel passes required of every Palestinian living under the illegal occupation of their land. As members of the Human Rights Commission, your job is to ensure Portland does not profit from investments gained through the violation of human rights. Your responsibility is not political or religious. It is moral and ethical. You have been asked to advise, and you have done so. I salute you, and I thank you.
Next we have Marilyn Abend. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, thank you very much. I had a whole big thing prepared, but I'd like to address something that I don't think is being addressed here. When people say it's not an issue about Israel, it's not an issue about Jews, it is an issue about Israel, and it is an issue about the state of Israel, which is this Jewish state of Israel. And it has been since the beginning of the Palestinian Mandate, okay, way back in the beginning of World War I, at the end of World War I, and moving forward to when the actual state of Israel was created in 1948. Israel had reached out to its neighbors, had reached out to the Palestinians. Even though there was several armies from every different country, there was like 7 armies of Arab nations that were going to destroy Israel. And Israel reached out to its neighbors and said, please don't leave. Do not leave. This is your country as well as it is ours. This is the history that is not told. Someone did mention that the army said to the people who were living in the land of Palestine at that time, leave, make room so the armies can come in. Israel had, in May 14, 1948, a declaration, I don't even remember the exact name of this, it's not what I was going to talk about, but had a declaration about a coalition to protect abandoned homes. Those homes were not allowed to be lived in. The fields had to be kept maintained, and it was for the Palestinian people who left. This is not part of the history. So when we talk about the negotiations that went on between the Arab nations, now it wasn't Palestinians that were making the negotiations. The Arab nations, they said, no way. We're not going to respect and have a state of Israel in the middle of an Arab world, all right? That's what was going on. And every single negotiation and every single opportunity.
That's two.
Thank you. Opportunity, I'm going to finish
No,
my
no, no.
The opportunity for peace was received by a no.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have David Aiken, I'm sorry. David Aiken.
Joanne?
She's just left.
Oh, what a shame. No sheet on my face, although there are those who would probably allege that the consonants would apply, but they would change the vowels. I'm not going to speak to the issues that were raised before. I am going to point out that Israel is a multi-ethnic state. There's no doubt that the majority of the citizens of Israel are Jews. But the majority of the citizens of Israel are Arab Jews who are refugees from Arab lands where they were expelled, and they were forced to settle in Israel because they had no other place to go. Let me repeat that. The majority of the citizens of Israel are Arab Jews. Now it's interesting that Israel exists as a multi-ethnic state. Druze, Western Christians, Eastern Christians, Muslims, and majority Jews. And they are settled and they take part in the economic life and they sit in the Knesset. The Palestinian state wants to be Yoiden Frey. No Jews, no ethnic multiplication, just Arabs who are Palestinians. The Christian Arabs in Palestinian areas are having an extremely rough time surviving and are discriminated against and terrorized on a regular basis. How is it that the Palestinian state is not a multi-ethnic state, but Israel is? Very curious to me. I'd like you all to think about that. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you, so thanks. Yeah, I'm kind of the Portland Peaceful Response. We demonstrate every Friday for peace. We have a sign out there. We're critical of the occupation of Palestine by Israel. I personally have never threatened anyone. I've never assaulted anyone. But as a demonstrator with my sign, Stop Funding Israeli Apartheid, I have been spit upon out there on Friday. One of our demonstrators has had their sign ripped off of their body and torn up. I've had cameras stuffed in my face. I just kind of mentioned it because we mentioned tonight that we want to have respect for the other people. But in demonstrating, that hasn't been the case out there. I'm not sure who's doing it. We never know. I am concerned about racism. I mean, I suffer. I'm a subjective person. I suffer when we have these acts of racism. So I'm very proud and pleased that you people are taking a stand to maybe address racism. I recently wrote a little letter to Blumenauer, and I just kind of mentioned that we do have some racism in our foreign policy. We support the state of Israel. Now, Israel, it turns out, is a racist state by 3 factors. By the functions that the government performs, the police and the Israeli Defense Forces, by the Knesset, by the laws they pass that take away the human rights, civil rights of Palestinians, and by the words of the elected leaders when they say, we want Israel to be a Jewish state. I mean, think about it. What is a Jewish state? That means if you're not Jewish, you're second class. And when Israel was founded, it was founded by one of the founders, Ben Gurion. He said, we want human rights abuses, otherwise there will be no Israel. And since then, they've had incidents of bone crushing. Palestine. Thank you.
That's your time. Next, the next 6 people that we have up are Michelle Minch, I believe your last name is listed here. Bob Minch. And we have Diane Blitzer, Jeffrey Drewquare, I'm so sorry, Marcia Spellman. She left, okay. I believe it says Joanne Rose. Does that sound familiar? And Josh Rose. Those will be our next. Josh Rose and Joanna spoke, okay. And then Matt Sermon. Does that sound familiar? I'm sorry, I can't read everyone's handwriting here. Okay, so we have Michelle, Diane, Jeffrey, Matt, and Kevin Martinick are next. First, Michelle Bombette Minch.
Thank you. I believe we are truly all here today because we believe in human rights for everyone. I'm a former board member of Oregon Area Jewish Committee and worked closely with Emily Georges Godfrey, former executive director. I joined OAJC because I'm passionate about human rights. I learned about the Human Rights Commission through Emily. I've attended the last 2 HRC award luncheons where awards were given in Emily's honor. It is at these luncheons where I learned of the great work of HRC and those individuals who were honored for strengthening intergroup relations. Emily brought people together from all walks of life. Dividing people was not how she worked. I was so interested in what HRC was doing, that I even emailed Sam Sachs, who might remember, because of my own interest in joining the work. I would like to attend the 3rd luncheon, I believe it's the 3rd year, where HRC awards individuals for their work in Emily's honor. However, today, I'm saddened and I'm hurt by an organization that is commissioned to speak on behalf of Portland's people. I feel betrayed. The HRC bylaws purpose states, and I'm not going to read all of it again, that you work to eliminate discrimination and bigotry, to strengthen intergroup relationships. I don't understand, I'm just going to skip this. I don't understand how you can say you've strengthened intergroup relationships, and when you say that you will educate the public on what's going on, if the public was not notified this was going on, I am on your email list. I did not receive the agenda item, and I assure you I would have been here. I've expressed interest in being a part of HRC, and I feel highly betrayed.
Thank you, Michelle. Next we have Diane Blitzer. Is Diane Blitzer in the room? Next we have Jeffrey Drewquare. Is Jeffrey in the room? Okay. Marcia left. Next we have Matt Simon. Are you on the, I'm sorry, are you Matt Simon? Okay, we're going right down. So if Matt Simon, is he here? Okay, we're going to move to Kevin Martinick.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Kevin Martinick. I'm with associate member of Veterans for Peace. And as Portland's Human Rights Commission is guided by the principles in the United Nations, by the principles of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, they have a responsibility to uphold that which is at the very foundation of their principles. Therefore, the HRC is charged an advisory role to the City Council to defend human rights issues however they arise in the City of Portland, whether it be working on community and police relations or advising the city on human rights violations that may be complicit with through investments and other actions. I commend the HRC for standing up for human rights issues even when they are not popular. Thank you.
I'm going to list the next 6. We have, I believe it's Latrice Kaplan, Stuart Bertoli, Michael Yehaven, Marlene Eid, Ariel Weinman, Kelsey Kaplan, and Brennan Thorpe.
Ariel is going to be replaced with his wife.
Ariel is going to be replaced with his wife, Erin?
Jennifer,
sorry, okay. Okay, so next we have Latrice. Is Latrice available? Is Latrice here? Latrice Kaplan. Okay. Next, Stuart Bartold. Is Stuart here? Okay, we're going to move to Michael Yehaven. Michael. Okay. We're going to move to Marlene Eid. Marlene, okay. I'm sorry if I said your name correct.
Yeah, my name is Marlene Eid. Eid is my last name, which translates into holiday. I'm Palestinian, American. I identify myself as both. Can you hear me?
No, louder. Closer.
Okay. I always identify myself and present myself as a Palestinian American. I lived more in the United States now than I have lived in Palestine. I'm originally from Jerusalem, from the Holy Land, and I grew up there. As a little child, I'm going to skip all the politics and everything because you've heard it and you know a lot about what happens under occupation. But I want to focus on me growing up as a child and knowing that bulldozers were just used to destroy houses of Palestinian neighbors or Palestinian families in another city, used as collective punishment by Israel. Whenever they destroy one house, they have the habit of destroying the whole neighborhood. It was really hard and painful as a child to see that. And of course, I did not understand it then. Growing up, being aware of a lot of social justice issues and human rights. Of course, I have been involved in a lot of organizations all over the world, wherever I have lived. I've been in Paris, that's where I got my undergraduate and graduate, and then I came here to Portland, Oregon, and I finished another graduate degree here, and I stayed here. And my involvement is, as I said, with a lot of different organizations, Palestinians, or others who are working towards human rights. That memory of houses being bulldozed will never leave my mind. As a child, of course, I didn't know, but being part of different organizations as I grew up, what I did is I saw that Caterpillar is one of those.
That's your
Sorry. Thank you very much for your time.
Next we have Jennifer Rubino in place of Ariel Weinman.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Rubino. I'm a student at Portland State University, a Latina, a member of the Jewish community of Portland, an African American, and a person of Native Indigenous heritage. And I grew up in Miami, Florida, in a strong Jewish community, in a democratic family where I truly believed growing up that Israel did not have a right to exist. And I changed my mind. I changed my mind a few years ago after learning a lot more than I did when I was in high school. And after spending 12 weeks this summer in Israel, traveling around the country, staying with Bedouins, staying with Druze community, meeting Palestinians of different economic levels and different political spectrums, and also Israeli citizens and Arab citizens of Israel. Today I believe that divestment and sanctions does not help anyone. Growing up in Miami, I saw the way the Cuban community was almost destroyed by the sanctions placed on this country against that country because of their politics. And it doesn't help anyone. People need jobs, and I believe that economics is the way to self-determination. And I believe that if we divest from these companies, countless jobs will be lost on both sides of this conflict. And honestly, money is what makes the world turn, and money is what helps people get an education and helps them find their rights and helps them fight for their rights. And if we take their money away, if we make it so that they are in a situation where they cannot live. They will go deeper and deeper into poverty, and we'll have more problems in the region. And somebody said here that this is not an issue about anti-Semitism, but we're forgetting that the people who vote on the United Nations are openly anti-Semitic towards Israel and Jews around the world. Thank you.
Next, we have Kelsey Kaplan.
Hi. I'm Kelsey Kaplan. I'm a student at Portland State University as well as the president of the Jewish Student Union. I'm pro-Israel, I'm pro-Palestinian, which a lot of people kind of are taken aback when I say that. But when you get down to it, I'm human. We're all human beings when you strip us down. We're human beings. I'm from Portland. I grew up in Portland. And I believe divestment and BDS, all it does is divide us. Many people here, including people up here in the audience today, have said that we're here to create the open dialogue and open space for people to come and talk about these issues. Divestment is not the answer to do that. That will isolate people, including students on campus, which many of us are here today, we've experienced that. On campus, I've been called horrible names, I've been spit on, I've been physically threatened because I'm Jewish and because I believe that Israel has the right to exist. Divestment and BDS is not the answer. It is not the answer to be creating the safe community that we want on campus. On campus, in our community in Portland, all of us want to talk about how we have our debate here, and it's going to keep creating answers that will eventually lead to peace. Divesting and isolating a certain group of people is not creating that community or open space. So I'm kind of confused as to why people would want to divest or support BDS, but at the same time say that they want to create an open dialogue and open space as well to communicate and eventually, hopefully, find the answer. Because I don't know the answer. But what I do know is the answer is not BDS and divestment. Thank you.
Next, we have Brennan Thorpe.
Okay, sorry. Hi, is it good now? There we go. All right. How about here? Here we go. All right. My name is Brennan Thorpe, and I'm a student at Portland State University. I am the president of the Israeli Cultural Club and a member of the Jewish Student Union. And I'm a Zionist because I believe the Jewish people have the right to self-determination in their homeland, as do the Palestinian people. This summer I had the opportunity to spend time in both Israel and the West Bank. I met Jewish, Muslim, and Christian Israelis, as well as Muslim and Christian Palestinians, especially in Bethlehem. And what I learned was that, above all else, we're all human, and what we all want is the basic right to live in peace. But what I learned was that how that will come about is very different depending on who you're talking to. Now, in my heart and soul, I know the BDS movement is not the answer. I know because while at Portland State University, sitting at a table with Israeli flags, I've been called a kike and a dirty Jew, been told to burn in ovens. Not because I'm Israeli, not because I'm Jewish, because I'm not, I'm a Christian. But these same people who are using these anti-Semitic slurs are also the people trying to force the BDS movement on our college campus. This movement is hate-filled, and I've personally experienced it. Now, I know everyone here is concerned with human rights, and I know that this is a land that we all love deeply. But what I'm telling you is that I've personally experienced that this boycott, divestment, and sanctions, this is not the answer. Now, can we come together as two communities to work for a solution? Yes, I believe we can. This is Portland, and I believe we can do that. But I don't believe that the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement will lead to that, as I've personally experienced. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
All right, next we have Sherry, is it Horse? Is Sherry here? Okay, next we have Jenna Borowski. I think it's Hauk Kaplan. Hank Kaplan. Sally Cohen. Gallet Pinker. Jeff Godfrey. And Courtney Shannon. Can you state your name?
Hank Kaplan, am I next to speak on your list?
Is Jenna Borowski here? Jenna. Okay, Hank, you're next.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I've been a member of the Jewish community for 30 years, an active member of the Jewish community. I support the BDS movement goals of ending Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and recognizing the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality as citizens. I share those goals, and I've spoken publicly in favor of those goals, but I don't believe that boycotts, divestment, or sanctions is a plausible or even constructive way to achieve those goals. As you can see from the discussion today, more polarization is not what this conflict requires. There's plenty of fault to go around on both sides of the conflict. The purpose of the BDS movement is to win the conflict with Israel, but there's never going to be a winner in this conflict. The choice is not between winning and losing. The choice is between either reconciliation or losing for both sides. As a tactic, BDS is basically just a blunt instrument designed to compel one side to bend to the other side's will. And there's one thing that we know from 60 years of this conflict is that neither side will ever do that. Now, one of the other hats that I wear is as president of the Northwest Employment and Education Defense Fund. And the reason I share that is because if the fund were to decide, and one of the purpose of the fund is to advocate for low-wage workers throughout the state, throughout the Northwest. And the reason I share that is because if we were to start focusing on, decide let's focus on wage theft committed by Caterpillar or Motorola or clinics that perform abortions or Mormon temples or Jewish businesses, our supporters and our donors would say, what the hell are you doing? That's not the low-hanging fruit. That's not the places that are the biggest offenders, of these issues. It's a misplaced priority to go after those kinds, and that's why you're hearing from people that they think that this is an anti-Semitic issue because they're not going after.
Thank you, Hank. Next is Sally Cohen here. Is Sally? Are you Sally? Is Sally? Okay. I believe it's Gallet Pinker. Gallet.
Okay. I wasn't supposed to talk, and my English is not the best, I'm sorry. I'll do my best. I'm American and I'm Israeli. And I can tell you, I was a soldier in the Israeli army. And believe me, we cared about human rights. And we did the best to protect people. And you can say whatever you want. And as a physical therapist in a big rehabilitation center, I took care of Gaza kids that Israel didn't hurt. And I took care of Arabs that had CVAs or whatever they had at the same way I took care of other people. I swear, for 12 years. So I can tell you that I'm a little bit shocked to hear that we're monsters, but we are not, believe me. So this is the first issue. The second thing is, if you BDS for companies that are working to destroy or to harm human rights, so why don't you BDS me, because I'm an American citizen, pays taxes, and the money that I support or pay for the Palestinian government is sent to build tunnels and bombs and missiles that are fired through kids that have 15 seconds for 8 years, 10 years from now, to run and search for shelters. I mean, if you BDS for companies that ruin houses that are houses, so just BDS me. That's it. I mean, who cares about the money that the Palestinian Authority gets and do whatever they want and take it to their pockets? I can show you evidence. And just to summarize what they want, because what I'm saying is that we all care about human rights, believe me.
Is that your time?
So now I have
We have 5 seconds. Sorry.
So, you disturbed me now.
She's been disrupted. She needs her 15 seconds, please.
I apologize. I thought I heard the timer. I'm genuinely sorry.
Yeah, so
she has her 15 seconds.
You have 15 seconds additional if you'd like to continue.
So, what I'm saying is that I'm sorry that I didn't hear the first, and I promise I'm going to be more involved in human rights here. And I think that other opinion should be heard and or
okay, that's 15. Thank you so much.
Give us information before to have a chance to say things that we should.
Put down Rebecca.
Is Jeff Gottfried or Courtney Shannon in the room?
Hello, my name is Courtney Shannon. Many of you in this room know me, especially the Human Rights Commissioners. For those of you who don't, I usually speak on behalf of the Houseless community. And I have to say I'm relieved to see some of you finally got up off your couches and came out here and found out what's going on here. This is a great commission. And to the commission, the reason why I'm standing here is for you, for once. I was mentored for a couple of years with Michael Moore. Some of you know him, I'm sure. And fantastic man in all areas in human rights in Portland. And he sent me all over the place to so many board meetings. I can't name them all, it's ridiculous the amount of board meetings I've been to. The one I fell in love with was you guys. Because you're honest. You care. You own your stuff. You have the courage to say, hey, you know what? Let's look into this deeper. Let's see what we can do about this thing. I don't know if we can do this, but let's try to do this thing. And today you astounded me yet again by saying, you know what? We messed up, we were wrong. For those of you who stood and said, hey, you know what? I didn't do my homework. Bravo. Thank you for honesty. Because you know what? There are so many politicians in this building and surrounding buildings and all over the United States, and I'm sure the world, who don't even admit that much. So, about resigning? No, please don't. You're honest. Bravo. Thank you.
Okay. I believe that is the totality of all of the folks who signed up. We are at 6:30. Did you sign up? Did we miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't see it here. Can you state your name when you get to the mic? I'm sorry.
My name is Frank Frangi. I'm a Palestinian American. I was born and lived in.
You're speaking to the microphone.
And I lived and was born and lived in Palestine. For the past 4 decades, I've been working very hard on Jewish-Arab dialogue, peace between Israelis and Palestinians, as the rabbi pretty much confirmed. We worked very hard for many decades to get reconciliation going. I have to be honest, I was really appalled today by how this whole issue was converted from specific 4 entities that are assisting occupation, assisting human rights violation, to a mandate on Israel or Palestine, which, by the way, I worked very hard for peace among both. I was about 15 feet away from Arafat and Rabin when they signed that agreement. What really troubles me is the acronym PAP. I see a lot of progressives among my friends, even on the people who stood up and spoke against BDS for those specific companies for the occupation. The term PAP is progressive except for Palestine. They're progressive on every issue, except when it comes to Palestine. There is some sort of something that draws them back away from seeing the truth. Even though I know in their hearts they know the truth. I worked very closely with the Jewish community. We all worked and strived to get peace. But I have to tell you, at this point, no words, no falsification of history is going to help us. I know you came under extensive pressure to rescind your vote. But the truth of the matter, I hope you think twice about doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to have missed you, sir. Is there anyone else who feels that they were missed as I went down the list? What's your name?
Is he on the list?
I'm not on the list. But I think I can add to the discussion the unique perspective. I'm an immigrant from ex-USSR, and I'll tell you, ex-USSR were experts on discrimination and human rights abuse, but they were also experts on concealing that and trapping their horns, how great they are and how in human rights they are forward-looking and leaders. So, therefore, by osmosis, I became somewhat an expert on human rights abuses. I'm actually appalled by this commission. This is my first meeting. There is a lady who mentioned several. A few things just mind-boggling to me. And you were talking about progress, process that you're following, and facts. I did not hear a single fact here about what really is going on. There were 2 points here mentioned. One is abuse by 4 companies. No facts. What did they abuse? Nothing. What they claim is we'll blackmail the companies so the country will not get their business. Is this a blackmail business you're hearing? I'm appalled by what I hear. The other part is, okay, who are you blackmailing? Companies? No, you're blackmailing country. Because you're talking about human rights violations. The companies, did they abuse human rights? No, they didn't. You're talking about company supports occupation. It's a total different issue. It has nothing to do with human rights. If you're a Human Rights Commission, then talk about facts and human rights. Otherwise, and you're not allowing to do a second vote, to me is absurd in a country that is based on the freedom. How can it be? I don't know if I'm disturbed, but...
That's 2 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening.
We have one additional request for public comment from Kathleen Sadat.
I promised myself I wasn't going to say anything. I couldn't stand it. Number one, I love you. Thank you. Wherever you end up with this...
I'm sorry. Can we please respect Ms.
Who is she? Oh, I'm Kathleen Sadat. Thank you. And I've been around a long time. I used to be on this commission, which is why I said I love you, because I know what you can do. I know that you're giving thought to what you do, and whether I agree with you or not, you have brought forward an issue that needed to be brought forward. Thank you. I want to remind people that the register does work.
Back a little bit.
Okay?
Staticky.
It does work. Yeah. Remember South Africa. You know you can't buy a Hooverand in Portland? And you couldn't buy one for a long, long time? And that's because people said, don't do this, don't invest in this, don't allow this to happen. Now, whether or not it's the right tool may be another discussion. But this does not seem to be a discussion. It seems to be a positional interaction. I heard someone earlier say it would be nice to have a conversation. I would love to be a part of that conversation. I'm old enough to remember the end of World War II and to have learned about the death camps and then to have learned about the establishment of Palestine. And it's all been very messy. And we all know that, which is why we keep arguing about it. So if we really want to get somewhere, it's time to talk about it. What are the solutions? I heard a lot of people say, no, this is wrong, but I haven't heard but one person say, this is what we should be looking at. Thank you very much.
That will close our public comment portion of our meeting tonight. I want to thank the folks who decided to come out and use the public process to voice their opinion. Before we step out of this aspect of our meeting, do any commissioners have any discussion that they would like to bring or any comments? Marcia?
Thank you. I think that there are people here on both sides of goodwill, and I believe the commissioners took the action that they took with a sense of goodwill and wanting to do the right thing. However, we did not hear from the other side. We only heard one side. We were only given information from one side. And tonight I heard specifically new information that both Motorola and Caterpillar, for instance, they hurt and they help. They build and they destroy, like almost any corporation. And what's different, I think, about the Middle East conflict, unlike South Africa, where I was a very strong supporter of divestment, Palestinians and Israelis live side by side. They're co-mingled. They work together. They are influenced by all of these corporations employ as well as hurt. So I think that we have to really, I haven't heard any evidence presented today that makes me believe that there is a reason to identify these four organizations, these four corporations as being separate from many other entities that are involved in the complexity of this struggle. I do not believe that in this case, divestment will resolve any human rights issues or promote reconciliation. And our action, which I believe was taken without adequate information, in no way promotes our mission of building intergroup relations. We see division today, and that division is not something that this commission is committed to. We're committed to actions which build intergroup relations, not tear them down. So with that in mind, I believe we have more important issues as a commission. Our priorities for this commission are to work on affordable housing, on the emergency housing crisis that is facing our community, and on police accountability, which are very serious issues for us, and that's where we should be, and they will build our intergroup communications and our community. They will not destroy it, as this issue is obviously doing. It's created hurt for a lot of people. I don't believe we really understand anything about the corporations that have been named in this action on either side. I don't think we know enough about it, and I don't think it's responsible for us to support something which is so divisive in our community.
Is there another commissioner that would like to respond? Or at least just share your perspective?
I'll say one quick thing, and that is, I think it's unfortunate that the commissioner who said she didn't do her homework is now sitting here saying we don't have information.
I will say that I don't think it's appropriate for commissioners to attack other commissioners publicly. If you have something, you know, praise in public, criticize in private, and it is not. It's not lost on me that the two commissioners that are continuing to be attacked have two things in common. One is we didn't do our homework, and two, we're both Jewish.
Oh, come on.
I'm just stating the facts.
We're going to try to ask folks in the audience to continue to let
I'd like my time to speak. And I'd also like to say that, the chair made a comment earlier alluding to I would assume myself or Marcia that we were pressured. I wasn't pressured from anything or by anyone. I admitted my mistake, and I made the decision to tell you I made my mistake here today. And that's it. I wasn't pressured by the Jewish community or anybody else. And you can laugh or you can say whatever you want, but as a Jew, I'm saying that's how I feel. And for you to dismiss how I feel, I don't know what to say to that.
Hold on, so I'm going to give some comment. So this issue is strictly about companies that are profiting from war. They don't only profit in Israel. We should have said that from the beginning. Israel is not the only place that these companies operate in. They operate all over the world, and they commit human atrocities everywhere. If we had said that, I think we could have avoided a lot of trouble. Now, I understand the plight of the Israelis and the Palestinians. In Mexico, over 80,000 people disappear annually. A lot of countries have problems, but we are here to talk about the value of human life, whether it's being destroyed by a caterpillar, whether it's being destroyed by companies that are profiting from that death, and then profiting by rebuilding the houses that they tore down. We are not trying to say whether something is right or wrong. We're saying in Portland, we have a lot of local companies that we could be investing in. Why don't we work harder to invest in companies here that are doing good things here? Now, the whole issue doesn't need to be blown out of proportion. There's people in the UN, there's people in NATO, there's people in the Middle East that are paid a lot more than me to do that kind of thing. But we can just talk about what we're doing here locally and our opinion on that. Now, having said that, we don't decide for the city of Portland. We're just an advisory body. We say this is what we think. Go do your thing, and it's up to them to decide. They'll be doing a lot more talk on this, and you can all go to those meetings too.
Thank you.
I want to clarify one. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'd like to address a particular issue about coalition building and our discussion around not only this issue but other issues that are divisive and what I believe about coalitions and their strength. And it's this. A wise public figure once told me that coalitions are only as good as they're willing to stick together and continue to come to the table to discuss tough topics. The minute that things get tough, if people are willing to get up and walk out, that investment in the community and in the process is lost. I would like to challenge my fellow commissioners, challenge the public to continue to engage in this process and demonstrate to ourselves, to the city, to one another, that we are invested in one another and building an example of a process that recognizes the humanity of all people. We are going to have differences of opinions. We are going to have differences that are going to, on a particular issue, we'll be together, and on another issue, we won't. But relationship building is about the ability to come back to the table and stay committed on the issues where we are the most divisive. So I would like to challenge folks and also mention another point of how I've seen white privilege operate in Portland. And that is that when we come to a table together, it's not okay, I think, for, and I've seen it happen, white folks to approach folks of color and say, I'm going to walk away from this table and it's going to be your fault. I'm going to disengage in this conversation and it's going to be your fault. You have a commission of very diverse folks here, and I want to we will listen to you. We will take into our hearts everything that you say. We will try to hold meetings with the best decorum, giving folks the opportunity to share. But I challenge you to become a part of this coalition, this commission, to make this work stronger and to commit to that process. This is a process. We are not going to get to the end anytime soon. But please commit to this process with us. That's all.
Diallo?
Quick mention. Yeah, thanks to you for bringing up that this is actually a global issue, including locally, and that I personally don't see I know that there's division, but I think that us all being in the same room together is an act toward something better, toward unity, toward identifying together as humans. And I mean, just as an example, the commission is really only allowed to speak during our public meetings. If we conduct any type of business outside of these public meetings, then we could be subject to any type of backlash. And so, just as an example, there's, as you see, some division even up here. And I think that it's as a result of not being able to communicate and be in the same room together. And so I think that this is a good thing that's happening right now. It's not a divisive thing. And I know that there was concerns over what specifically the companies are doing. And there is intro to the international law violations that explains all of this in the packets, and I'm sure that the people who offer them to us would be willing to offer them to everyone. They include arrest and administrative detention without charges of both adults and children as young as 9 years of age, land confiscation, harassment at checkpoints, disruption of free movement, destruction of homes, uprooting trees, killing livestock, and implementing military law for Palestinians. The laws that are violated include Article 1 of the UN Charter and the Declaration on Principles of International Law Concerning Friendly Relations, Principle 5, 1970. It goes through about 6 or 7 different examples, yes, these examples are about Israel and Palestine, but I'm sure that there are examples other places, as these are global corporations that are also here. I did some light research on it and looked into G4S, Motorola, and Hewlett-Packard and Caterpillar, and you can do this as well just by Wikipediaing their names. G4S is a security company that that is also contracted in Portland, and they own prisons and immigration detention centers. The rules that are set for our police officers don't necessarily apply to these people, these security guards, and they're not Portland police. They are a company, and so I just think that we should all be thoughtful and critical about all of this. So.
Ashley.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for providing public comment. It was really wonderful to have a chance to hear from all of you. I know that there are many different perspectives and lived experiences in this room, and we want to be respectful, and that's our intent in hearing from you. And I appreciate those who withheld their comments while others were speaking, even though that comments provided may not sit well with you, because the whole point of this is to hear from everyone and not to silence different views, experiences, and so forth. I just want to reiterate that the very act of sitting on a body such as this is painful and uncomfortable. All of us have connections to different human rights issues, and it can be triggering to participate in this. So as human beings, individuals showing up as volunteer community members serving in this capacity, it is painful. So you may have seen me get teary-eyed. It's painful for me to hear about other people's experiences and understand the trauma that is involved on all sides and the loss and all of that, the damaging impacts of violent conflict. And given that, I just want to reiterate that as a human rights commissioner, I apply a universal human rights lens to all of my considerations and decision making, and I do that no matter who we're talking about, even if who we are talking about is someone of my lineage, or someone of my religious faith, or someone of, so I want to be very clear that this is a principled, not a politicized, decision-making process. I can speak for myself, I did my homework, I'm fairly learned and experienced in this arena as well. And I just want to reiterate that I respect all of you, and that I never, ever, ever would I would never participate in a conversation or a decision that I felt was with intent to polarize, silence, hurt anyone. I do not believe that with the crisis that was, we heard different sides, different understandings of it. I do not believe that this body is vested with the capacity, the charge, the scope, etc., to address and resolve this huge crisis that has extended for many generations and unfortunately will probably continue for more. But I do think that we are vested with the responsibility to consider the City of Portland's relationship with businesses that are complicit in and or profit from violent conflict. As a Human Rights Commissioner, I am pro-peace. I am not pro one side or the other. I want to be very clear, I am absolutely not pro one side or the other. I'm pro-peace. I don't want more people to suffer. I don't think one side has been 100% right or 100% wrong. I think there is pain, suffering, wrongdoing, all of that trauma on both sides. And I wish that there could be space in the United States to have more conversations like this, where we could not make assumptions, point fingers, or paint people in such a horrible light. Being called anti-Semitic, I have a visceral reaction to it because I was raised by a strong Jewish woman for 8 years of my formative years. So it's very frustrating, painful, all of that to hear that, because I have so much respect for the Jewish community and am very connected to it. So that may be a bit personal to share in this room, but I just wanted to relay that we're all human beings. We hopefully bring our full selves to this work. We are using a principled, not a politicized process, at least that's our intent. And I stand behind what we did. The information that I heard from others didn't go against what we had heard in terms of the human rights abuses, the implications that we were tasked with considering. So I didn't hear any contradictory testimony that would go so far to say that there are not human rights implications, abuses, and so forth that are happening at the hands of these companies. And that's what we're tasked with. That's what we are here to talk about, not a pro one side or the other, not a divisive, polarizing conversation.
I just wanted to bring in a couple things. One is I wanted to make sure that while there were still folks in the room that we said thank you to Dante and the staff at the Office of Equity and Human Rights. For their support, because quite often we thank them for giving us the space and the room to be independent. But tonight we did need your support, and you've been here for us, so thank you very much for that. The other thing I wanted to say is many of us on this commission are persons of color, identify as such, and there's a dynamic that sometimes happens when we might be impacted by something, and we say, well, that's about race. And somebody who doesn't see it that way says, no, it's not. And tonight we've heard a lot of, this isn't about Israel, this isn't about anti-Semites, it's not about Jews. And I think I want to be careful about that dynamic as we move forward. We've heard a lot about the impacts on the Jewish community here, and so I want us just to acknowledge that impact is there, and recognize that what we do impacts a lot of communities, and not steer away from that or not hide behind that wasn't our intent. Because as we know, again, from communities that are often oppressed, that the impact can be more important.
Thank you, Alan. Before we move on to the rest of our agenda, does any other commissioner have anything else they would like to bring up as it relates to our October 7th vote?
Are we going to have an opportunity to make a motion to overturn this?
Any commissioner always has the opportunity to raise any motion.
I'd like to make a motion to overturn our decision to divest from the 4 companies in October. I'd like to make a motion to overturn that.
I second that.
Commissioners, there's a motion on the table. I would ask, I personally have taken notes from every single piece of public comment that we've received. If you feel that we have received information, new information, as it relates to the 4 companies and their human rights violations and our endorsement of the group to go forward to the Socially Responsible Investment Committee so that they can further do that research, please let me know, and if so, we can move forward with the motion. But at this point, I'm not certain that I personally have heard of anything new as it relates to those 4 companies, 4 American companies, in which we would then entertain this motion.
Just a point of order, if I might, Madam Chair. There's a motion on the table that's been properly seconded. To not vote on it requires an objection by a member of the commission.
I see.
I would like to provide that objection.
Yes.
I don't believe we've been given information that justifies re-voting on something that we already unanimously decided on based on information we were provided.
So, if I might, I would suggest that there are 2 things happening here. One, You as the chair can rule on the objection and withhold movement on the vote. There's also an opportunity to then use your question to preliminarily determine from the commission whether they believe they have heard something significant enough to move toward a vote. And so you might start there in polling the commissioners as opposed to just ruling on the objection of the vote. That might be a way to move forward.
Thank you, Dante. Thanks for that parliamentarian piece, and I really appreciate your perspective there. I would like to ask the commissioners in that same vein, if you have heard, and if you feel that you've heard of new information that would move us towards taking a vote about these 4 companies, these 4 American companies and their human rights violations, I'd ask you to raise your hand, and we will look at that to see if we have folks who would like to help us make a vote. I have C. Autumn, who feels like she'd like us to make a vote. Sam Sachs. Marcia. Any other
Is now a good time for a clarifying question?
Yes, go ahead.
So substantively, like the numbers and figures and facts of it, there hasn't been anything new for me. But the way that the community has interacted with this opportunity is a new experience for me.
I hear you.
So I believe that matters in my judgment of how I would proceed.
So are you saying you would like to go ahead and move towards us making a vote?
That's another thing I have a question about, because I feel like doing it right this minute doesn't even let me absorb all those 43 comments. I mean, I guess we didn't end up having that many, but 30 at least.
Wait, over 40.
Yeah, oh, see, so I feel like we took a month the first time, and it would behoove me to like have a minute. And I don't know if we have the capacity for that, but I'm just bringing it up as my reaction to the situation.
Okay, so Commissioner Teresa, I hear you saying that you would like more time to understand what is taking place today, and that will help you get to a further decision on whether or not you feel that we need to entertain a vote.
Point of order, Madam Becker.
See, just a moment, please.
Point of order. If you operate under Robert's rules, it's my understanding that this vote that was taken can be called to reconsider, but it has to have due process. It has to have notification and, the process that you've established.
Thank you. See, Autumn?
Sorry, so I was raising my hand, and I want to clarify that I actually wasn't raising my hand to revote. I just wanted to discuss what you were putting on the table.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I was just raised it, and I looked it up there. The only thing that I would like us to reconsider is a position that I heard that came from the public about what are the, and I'm gonna get this wrong and I'll have to look at the tape, but when do we say that this position is no more? I think we need to clarify when we're gonna, what needs to happen in order for us to take this away. Does that make sense?
So, yes,
so it may not be, it's not a discussion for tonight then.
So I think I'm going to attempt to respond to that. So we as a body unanimously voted on taking and endorsing a letter that would say that we do believe that the Socially Responsible Investment Committee is the next committee that could look at this issue. And that this, the folks who brought it to us in the community, that we thought that they should continue to use the public process in which to go to the Socially Responsible Investment Committee and have them look at that. So whether the Socially Responsible Investment Committee decides to use their public process and look at this issue is not something that we can determine. We can only determine what we did before was whether or not we agree, and that's one of the reasons I kept going back to the 4 companies in particular, the 4 American companies. If we feel like these 4 American companies, which we were given information, I personally did my own research on it, and I think we've heard that other commissioners have in fact done that as well. If we do feel like there's new information on those 4 particular companies that would lead us to no longer believe or to change or to pick up a new vote as it relates to those 4 companies, then we could do that. Again, this group who has this endorsed letter could go to the Socially Responsible Investment Committee. They could have gone there without us. They can also go there now, and it's up to them to take up that issue. So us, in our vote on October 7th, was simply saying, we do believe the Socially Responsible Investment Committee is a group that can continue to look based upon their ordinance at human rights issues as well.
Could I just make a point of clarification about the policy?
We're gonna make sure we can have some commissioner discussion on this.
Because it is in the policy, how companies get brought off the list.
It's in the policy how companies get brought off the list. Thank you.
Sorry. Hi everyone. So if we could go back in time, I would not vote any differently. I also did my own research and feel that I would not change that particular position. I think that today has been, a really good opportunity to hear from a lot of people and hear different perspectives and to actually feel different energy about this particular issue. I do think that if other commissioners feel differently and want to change their position, and if there is an opportunity, I do think that that process should go forward. Not thinking that as a commission I would want us to change our vote, or I particularly don't want to change my vote, but just saying that I do think that opening that is important.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I hear you mentioning that you would like to make sure that we at least allow for the commissioners who've shared their perspective and the possibility of a vote going forward. You feel like that's okay. You are not saying that you would change your vote, nor do you believe that the commission should change their vote. Is that correct? Okay. I'm sorry, Teresa, did you say you want to say something?
And that resolves it for me as well.
It's the same thing that you feel?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I have a question.
Diallo?
Mike?
So I'm also down to, hold a revote, but I do really want to hear what you guys feel about the specific companies. Do you feel like they are not involved in human rights abuses, or do you feel like this would not fit with our mission? I just would like more information on why you guys would like to change the vote, but I still do support having a revote as well.
I guess I heard things today from Hank Kaplan, the attorney that spoke, and from the Rabbi Rose when he spoke about the different reconciliation organizations that exist to promote peace and ending of occupation in Israel. I think they both said that these four corporations are not going to be in any way helpful to divesting them, and are not going to make any impact on the peace process. And in fact, people said both Motorola and Caterpillar have been involved in positive things for Palestinians as well as Israelis. They have done hurtful things, they've done positive things. And that made me feel like I didn't really hear much in the materials that I did ultimately read. I didn't really see, other than very superficial kinds of like, oh, they tear down houses. I didn't hear anything substantive. I didn't hear anything substantive, and frankly, I don't know if that's true. I do know from the testimony that we had today that the organization that is sponsoring this has an agenda way above and beyond these four corporations and divesting in them. And I think that that's valuable for us to know. I think I'm a committed person to the peace process in the Middle East. I've been a long-term advocate for a two-state solution and involved in this. I do not support, and I know there are organizations that have agendas that they're not out front with. And I think that was the agenda of this BDH group, was very much exposed today and not something that is building reconciliation in our own community or internationally.
As I mentioned before, I did not...
Sam, I'm sorry, Audrey was next, and then we can go to you.
I thought you asked the commission, do y'all ask the commissioners that wanted to change their vote why?
Okay.
I thought that's what we were doing.
Ashley?
So I didn't do my homework the first time. I've heard a lot of stuff on both sides since then. I've heard what I perceive to be anti-Israel and anti-Semitism. I haven't heard or seen anything that would lead me, now that I have all the knowledge on both sides, to vote to divest from these 4 companies. And that's why I would like an opportunity to re-vote. I don't see anything that would lead me to support this this recommendation. And I would also add that, you know, we've heard from people on both sides much more involved and have much more knowledge on this issue than myself and many people at this table. We've heard from Congress, we've received letters from Congress, Congresswoman Bonamici, Ted Wheeler, the mayor, other people deal with this issue, and none of them support this as well. So that's where I'm at today, and I would like the opportunity to vote.
So can I just, point of clarification, Sam, are you saying that you haven't heard any new information about the 4 companies in question and as it relates to their human rights violations?
Correct.
So you haven't heard any new information?
I'm not sure if you're challenging me or you asked me because I just said
I'm just literally asking you.
I haven't heard any, so I haven't heard any new information from Occupation Free. The information I have heard from the Jewish community and other people have changed my mind, and I'd like to vote to change my vote. Is that clear?
Okay, so you've changed your mind as it relates to the 4 companies and their human rights violations. Okay, so then that's leading you to want to take a new vote. And Marcia, okay. Go ahead, Audrey.
I would like to maybe offer as an option that commissioners who last month voted in the affirmative and actively participated in the process that we held, and now would like to do something different, that they be able to state for the record that they have changed their mind, but that does not change the vote that we held, that was following a process, that was based on research, that was based on all of us doing our jobs, coming here as responsible human rights commissioners and looking at the issue of human rights universally, and our decision was based on that. And I would just like to offer that as an opportunity rather than a revote, because the process has already happened, that you can say that you've changed your mind for the record.
I'm trying to recommend another process to have a revote, and I think I have the right to do that, if that's correct, Dante. And I've made a motion, the motion has been seconded, so, you know, rather than continue to go back and forth, can we either vote or not vote, move on?
Okay, so there right now is a question.
There's a properly moved and properly seconded motion on the table which has an objection. So the conversation has been, I mean, it's discussion on the motion and the objection. And so at this point, Madam Chair, you have the ability to either sustain the objection or overrule the objection and suggest that the vote should go forward. You can do that based upon whether it's timely or not to do the vote now, whether there's been new information that would cause the need for a vote. So you can, as chair, decide on the objection whether it will be sustained or overturned to move the vote or not move the vote forward, according to Robert's Rules of Order. And so, depending upon what you have heard from the commissioners in terms of their thought process in this, can inform your decision.
Okay.
One of the reasons I would like to have a vote is I don't want this organization to be going forward throughout the country and saying there was a unanimous vote in the by the Portland Human Rights Commission, because I think that would be an inaccuracy.
Thank you. So I do want to state that there was in fact a unanimous vote that took place on October 7th. With that unanimous vote, we sitting here at our November meeting do have a motion on the table. That motion has been seconded. That same motion has been objected to. And based upon the discussion that I've just heard, I'm going to clarify, I have Sam Sachs, Marcia Sutton-Bird, who are okay and would like to move towards taking a vote again on this issue. I've heard from Diallo that he is open to taking a vote, and I've also heard from Daniel that he's open to taking a vote. So 4 members of our commission who feel that they are interested in taking a vote. I personally have yet to hear that these, Sam Sachs is the one person that has stated that he's heard new information about these 4 companies and their relationship to human rights violations. Because we do have 3 additional commissioners who are interested in taking a vote.
The main reason I care to take a vote is just so that Sam and Marcia can rest easy knowing they voted against it.
Yeah, I feel like that's an important part of our process.
Yeah, that's the only reason for me too, but at the same time, I mean, it's just really confusing because I haven't heard real new information on if these companies are not engaged in violating human rights and international laws, but I still care about the feelings of people, and so you guys are people, and if you guys feel like you really don't want your vote to say yes, then I hear you.
On that end,
I'd say this should be, I guess what I would say is, I don't know that we want to set a precedent that says we voted on something and a month later I have got more information. I think we have some discussion to do about process, but I want to be careful about that. I do, you know, our bylaws do provide that minority opinions should be made known by the commission. This case is a little bit different because there actually wasn't a minority position because it was a unanimous vote.
Correct. So
we're trapped a little bit, but I would be open to what Audrey suggested, that Sam and Marcia, they've already made known their opinions. There could be an official way for them to do that without revoting. Just so we don't have a precedent that says, you know, we will, you know, that we should revote based on the fact that, you know, we didn't do something the first time, because I think we did follow process in this, and I think we need to talk more about that process to see how we can get 200 people in a room the first time. Okay? So, but that's where I'm at.
I have an additional point on that. If Sam had not said that he heard new information, then I would think that Alan's plan or approach is fine and good. But given that he has said that he heard new information, I believe that we should proceed with the new vote.
Thank you for that. I want to state for the record, and I really do appreciate everybody's perspectives. And I'm just stating for the record as a commissioner myself and as a person, giving peace of mind to each other around a vote that we took, whether we did our homework or not, is not official reason to take a revote. Alan, you mentioned that we're in a hard place because setting precedent around changing a vote, especially a unanimous vote, once we have been made aware of a minority perspective or decision, is one to note, and it is in our bylaws. I'm sitting in a hard place as it relates to making and taking a revote on something that all but 2 members of our commission said they did their work on and then showed up to the meeting in which to make a vote.
Can we already have that information? Can we like stop going over that? I would just encourage you, Chair, to make a decision.
Sam, as the chair, you brought a motion, and so right now we're discussing that motion, the second, and then the objection to that motion.
hate to sound like Hillary Clinton, but what difference does it make if we take another vote? It looks like it's going to pass again.
Exactly.
I would say
taking the vote is responsive to many of the people that spoke today and gave testimony and did present new information. And taking a vote is being sensitive to the people that participated in this process.
On the other hand, I would say that taking a revote without new information regarding the 4 companies that we voted were complicit in human rights violation, taking a new vote after we unanimously decided based on this information undermines all of our work. It negates everything that we do because we can't, we're saying we're not taking a stand on anything. We're not gonna, you know, someone pressures us into changing our mind. So okay, we'll do that. That's not what this is about. That's not what our job is for. Our job is not to be here and do all the comfortable stuff and take it easy and have fun. Our job is to stand up for universal human rights, and I believe that we did that with the vote.
I just want to say this is heavy, and I appreciate all of us for sticking through it. There's also the third option to table this. I don't know if that's smart either. I know we want to get this over with. It's fun a little bit, you know, touchy, but it's also causing more divisions. I don't know.
You got a rule on the objection?
Yeah, right now I feel like we're a bit at an impasse, although with the 12 commissioners present, and we have 2 commissioners who've stated that they've heard new information that would lead them to want to take a new vote. We have other commissioners that are open to entertaining a new vote, but they have yet to hear new information. And the objection that was held was if we have not heard, as a commission, new information, then that objection, if I were to sustain it, would mean that we would not entertain this new vote.
Madam Chair, may I also give you one other option?
Sure.
Which is you can sustain the objection, and then there could be a motion on whether to take a new vote, which would precede taking a vote. So I mean, there could be a motion to determine whether a vote should be taken. Does that make sense? Which would then everybody would be on record. Okay.
I couldn't.
And have to state whether there should be a new vote. You might get to the same place, but there's a prior step to actually re-voting on this. Does that make sense?
Take a vote to re-vote.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as the chair of this commission, right now I'm volleying between myself the parliamentary aspects of what we're doing here today and ensuring that our process is as true as can be, along with what I believe we did and not taking precedent by changing something that I personally did my research and voted on.
Madam Vickers, can I say again, Robert's Rules provides for just this kind of situation. For an issue that's been voted on, someone who voted in the affirmative can request a reconsideration. And you can either do that right now, or you can postpone it until you have more time to gather information. But that's what Robert's Rules specifically says, that someone who has to vote in the affirmative, they kind of have voted against it originally. So any of you could call for a reconsideration because of new information.
Don't we have a parliamentarian who's already voted on it? Why are you interjecting?
Whether or not they want to reconsider it. The person
Okay, so we're going to take a formal vote so that this objection and the piece in between here on if we would like to revote.
So you
might have to.
So I'm going to
sustain
the objection and ask if we have a motion to vote on reconsidering the option of voting again.
I so move.
You're not bringing
Second.
the motion.
I'm not bringing the motion. I didn't say I was bringing the motion.
Marcia moved.
Okay. Marcia Suttenberg has moved to vote on whether or not we should take a formal revote of our October 7th action. This is not a revote of our decision, but whether or not we should revote. Alan seconded it.
Is everybody clear on the motion, what we're voting on?
Is anyone not clear on the motion of what we're voting on?
Whether or not we're going to vote again.
We're voting on
That's it. We got that?
That's exactly it.
We're voting on whether or not we're going to vote to reconsider. So if you vote in the affirmative, you are affirming that you would like to reconsider the vote. Correct? If you vote in the negative, you are saying you do not want to reconsider our vote, and we will not vote again.
Thank you, Alan.
And it's a formal vote on the discussion that happened.
Thank you. There we go. So this is another formal vote on the discussion that we've just had to clarify for everyone, myself included, on how we're going to move forward. And so we have a motion, we have a second, so that we can vote on whether or not we will revote. All who are in favor of us revoting, does anyone have any question around what a revote means? All of us all who would like to move towards a revote, please say aye.
Aye.
And show of hands.
Show of hands.
I have one commissioner, I have two commissioners, three, I have four, is that 5? I have 5 of 12 commissioners that are voting to revote.
Can you name those off, Tatiana, so we make sure we have it right?
Sam, Marcia, Alicia, and Teresa.
And
Is that correct?
And we're missing Seattle.
So that's 5?
5 of 12 vote to revote in the affirmative. Are there any who would like, or who vote no for the revote? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 who would like us to not revote. Are there any abstentions? We have 1 abstention.
No,
I'm sorry? Okay, we have 1 abstention. That's the total, that's everyone.
Who abstained?
We have 1 abstention, that's Diallo.
So the motion does not pass.
Just what I'm writing down, everyone.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. As we do not have a majority vote to revote, the motion does not stand. We are not going to take a revote on our vote that happened.
As I suggested before, I just want to make sure the record reflects that Sam and Marcia, that their comments are reflected that they did not support the original action, even though they voted for it. So,
thank you, that's duly noted. Tatiana, please make sure that we have in the record that Sam Sachs and Marcia Suttenberg do not support our original vote, even though they did vote in the unanimous. We, as a commission, just voted to not revote, but they would like to ensure that their perspectives, which have now changed based upon information that they've received, that they do not agree with our vote. Okay, that agenda item is now done. Commissioners, we are not done. The meeting has not adjourned.
No, now the good stuff.
We have one more item that we moved initially to keep on the agenda, and so I'm going to ask us to quickly take care of that. We are right now at 7:30. We're an hour over our typical meeting. the last item is to vote on Lifetime Achievement, Outstanding Organization, and Emerging Leader nominations for the Human Rights Awards that will come up on December 11th. To the folks who are going to share with us our Lifetime Achievement, I'd like to ask everyone who's in the audience to please help us continue to finish this meeting. Alan, I believe you were bringing information about our Lifetime Achievement nominee.
Thank you, Shabri. The nominating committee for the Human Rights Awards met and selected or recommending that Mayor Tom Potter be awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award for Human Rights.
Mayor Tom Potter for the Lifetime Achievement Award.
For those who don't know, we wouldn't be sitting here without Mayor Potter. Mayor Potter created the Portland Human Rights Commission on November 5th, 2008, when it was first convened. At that point, Mayor Potter described the work of the commission as we've seen tonight, quote, critical to the success and well-being of our community. Mayor Potter's work also included creating and working to create the Immigrant and Refugee Task Force, which is now part of the New Portland News program. He supported the creation of the Bose Day Labor Center on MLK Boulevard. He, along with his wife, Karen Hansen, worked to create the Bill of Rights for Children and Youth. And he was formerly the chief of the Portland Police Bureau, and at that time was a proponent of community policing and other Portland Police Bureau reforms. He was also the mayor at the time that the council voted to pull Portland originally out of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Mayor Potter has also been the executive director of New Avenues for Youth, which provides services for homeless kids and youth. And he was the one, under his tenure as the mayor, that brought in and supported the federal 10-year plan to end homelessness. He also supported the creation of Dignity Village and has been a strong supporter of the LGBTQ community here in Portland.
Thank you, Alan. Next, we have the Outstanding Organization Award. Yes?
I think Ms. Kathleen
You have an error.
Uh-oh.
Tom did not create the commission.
Oh.
He revived it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HRC existed a long time ago.
He created it in the city of Portland and recreated it in 2008 in the city of Portland from other entities.
Yes. Well, there was a Human Rights Commission in '92 because I was staff to it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Dodd. Next, we have Outstanding Organization.
Okay, so this year for Outstanding Organization, we are recommending Street Roots. We're recommending Street Roots as this year's Outstanding Organization for their tireless service toward making Portland a better, safer, and more just place for all in our community. Street Roots folks are incredible advocates for the rights and well-being of the homeless and those experiencing poverty. They provide a hand up by offering income opportunities, not to mention a community for vendors who sell their paper. They provide an ever-present and thoughtful voice in advocacy efforts toward housing rights and the need for affordable housing. They are true community partners, recognizing that it takes a village. They work together with community agencies and government officials to inform policy and create forward movement on behalf of the homeless community. And they provide stellar journalism and storytelling with a voice that doesn't exist elsewhere in our community.
Thank you, Audrey. And lastly, we have the Emerging Leader.
Yes, our choice for Emerging Leader is Kat Guggenauer. Right. She's an Oregon-born human rights advocate with a specialization in equity policy. She holds an MSc Sociology, Race, Ethnicity, and Post-Colonial Studies from London School of Economics and Political Science at the University of London, and a BA in Liberal Arts, Social and Political, political philosophy from Portland State University. She employs a data-driven approach to identify and tackle the root causes of inequity and disparity through policymaking and advocacy, social narrative reframing, base building for the most impacted. Her professional involvement includes a research consultant for PolicyLink in 2014, Multnomah County Community Health Worker in 2013, Equity and Racial Justice Facilitator through OEHR and Uniting to Understand Racism, a lead consultant at Radix Consulting Group, and she's worked with Urban League and Metro Equity as a baseline consultant. And she's also a published researcher. We think she deserves the award because all her forms of involvement, professionally and non-professionally, She clearly has a deep level of love and empathy for the community and a dedication to get the jobs done through noble behaviors. She's become a trusted and known voice in the community, and we think that she's a perfect fit for the Emerging Leader Award.
Thank you, Diallo. Do we have, would anyone like to?
Motion to accept the nominations and move them forward for the awards.
Okay, we have a motion from Seatum and a second from Audrey to accept Mayor Tom Potter as the Lifetime Achievement Award winner, the Street Roots Organization for the Outstanding Organization, and Kat Gogenauer for the Emerging Leader Awards that will be held on December 11th, 2015 for our Human Rights Awards event. Can I have all those in favor of these three vote? Aye.
Aye.
I vote, I think, is it, okay, hands, thank you. It looks like a unanimous vote, so there are no abstentions and there are no votes of no, correct? Okay, the motion passes. We will accept these three as our awardees at our December 11th meeting. Excuse me, our December 11th awards luncheon to happen at 11:30 on December 11th. Thank you, commissioners, for that, and folks in the audience, if you're interested, we'd love to have you come out and celebrate. Other community members who continue to strive towards human rights in our city. With that, we are done with our agenda. Before we leave this meeting and before I adjourn, I would like to say thank you to each and every commissioner for taking the time today, for continuing to take the time between our meetings to do research, to come and bring your full person to every single meeting, and hopefully the time you take while you do research or you look into the issues that are brought to our table. I ask each and every one of you to continue to do your best and to uphold the oath that we all took when we became commissioners. They ask us to continue to respect each other and to continue to hold a process, a public process that does that. On that note, and this very long meeting, we are adjourned.